With great power comes great responsibility.
Compromise where you can. Where you can't, don't. Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right, even if the whole world is telling you to move, it is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye and say no. You move.
Never step onto the battlefield of ideas unprepared. Before you enter the fray, you need a plan. And there's no better place to get one than right here on Tactics with host Caleb Colquitt. The Situation Room goes live now on News Radio 1440.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being with us here on Tactics, where speech isn't violence, tolerance isn't love, and disagreement isn't hate. As always, I'm your host, Caleb Colquitt, and as you've surely noticed from our festive set, including our Festivus poll here, this is our big annual Festivus special, so we appreciate so much you deciding to be here and be a part of this occasion with us. So we're going to, just like we have with every Festivus episode so far, we're going to go ahead and welcome in two of our guests. And this year we have a real treat for you. We've got two guests with my father, John Colquitt.
Hello.
And also Laura Clark.
Hi.
And they're here and ready to give us some commentary and add a little bit to the show as well. And we also have John Clark, as you can see. So now, Laura, both of your kids are the only two babies to ever be on the show.
They're all raised in politics.
That's right. Well, we're very glad to have all of you here. So I said two guests, but I guess we do technically have three. I don't know how much John plans on contributing, but we'll see how that goes.
The baby may be more interesting. I don't know.
I mean, let's be honest, probably. He's cuter than all of us. So, yeah. But we're going to go ahead and start, as we always do, with the airing of grievances.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're going to hear about it.
For the airing of grievances, I think the way that we'll do this, because it just works out easier, we'll each do one and just kind of play off of one another. So if y'all want to do that, I tell you what, since I think that it's the mannerly thing to do, and we actually do understand that there is a gender binary, we will let the lady go first. So Laura, do you want to go ahead and give your first grievance?
I had to narrow down all of my problems with people, but mostly it's with my own gender. Okay. So number one.
Fair enough.
Women's Bible study habits. I'm sorry, but if your Bible study is writing down one verse in coloring pencils and coloring a cute picture while you're playing your Christian music off of K-Love and light a pretty candle, you're not studying the Bible. You're just drawing. 3-year-olds do that. Do better. That's
Okay.
mine.
All right. Well,
That was a bit harsh.
Dad, I feel like if we comment on that, then we're going to be labeled as anti-woman.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of there with it. We were talking about that before the show began, and I agree with that a lot.
See, I love how I jokingly said, if we comment on that, we're going to be labeled anti-woman, and Dad's like, yes, double down.
Listen,
If he's anti-woman, so am I.
I think that women can handle the highest level of doctrine any man can.
I'm not saying you have to read Athanasius. I just started Athanasius. You can. Women, we can handle it. I'm a stay-at-home mom with 2 boys. I've got a 2-year-old, and I can read Athanasius. You could read Athanasius.
Hey, Dad, I think your mic's off.
Is it?
Yeah.
When I moved?
Yep.
Are we on now?
Yes, you are on now.
There we go. Okay. Well, I guess I'll go to mine then.
All right.
All right, my grievance. And it's in the form of a question.
Okay.
How much further, what is the end point? Where can we go with the sexual abominations that I see taking place with trans, LGBTQ? And you'll have to help me with this, young people. Polyamory?
Polygamy?
Polyamory?
Polyamory. There you go.
That's it.
Which is
I just discovered this the other night.
What is that?
Oh, you don't know what it is?
No.
It's polygamy.
I'm a normal woman.
It's polygamy.
Well, it's polygamy without marriage.
What?
Right. What you do is, all right, the
That's
example.
hedonism.
or-
So that is.
well, it is, but you've got the one that I saw was 2 women with a man.
Right.
That's one happy
And
man.
they have a You got to be kidding.
I was
No.
about to say that's
No.
the least happy man.
Look at all the biblical characters that had multiple women. They had terrible lives. Sit and think about it.
Without a doubt.
You go back through all the biblical characters and all of them that have multitude of women. You know how miserable David was.
They're
how
never
miserable-
gonna know what to have for dinner.
No,
ever.
and look. You have to do all kinds of things to keep one woman happy.
It's true.
Oh, we are so easy.
Yeah. Well,
Snacks.
look,
We're good.
keep one woman happy is the greatest challenge of a man's life. It is. But then when you've got to keep two women happy,
Oh yeah.
that's not going to happen. Why do you think God designed it like he did?
You know, I to that point, Dad, it's so funny whenever I do get into political arguments and people that are biblical skeptics, one of the things they love to throw out, which I think is ironic in a number of ways, is they say, well, you know, the Bible is pro-polygamy. I'm like, have you not read the Bible? Every single person that practiced polygamy wound up miserable. All
Well,
of
yeah,
them.
they
It
did.
always caused problems.
But
Abraham, David, all of them.
and then this particular new lifestyle that has a Facebook page and has a help group and has a
It's a help
support
group.
system and all of those kind of things, because I just looked at that. I looked at
You gonna need
this
it.
up this week, and there's no way it could work. I mean, that's not going to work.
Oh,
And-
obviously not.
And it's what I'm saying is with the LGBTQ and the trans and all of those kind of things that I'm learning all these things as life goes on. What's the end point? And I know the answer to my question because sin always progresses. It never gets better.
Oh yeah.
And because of that, it's going to continue to get worse. I've always said, Caleb's heard me say this before, the next thing that the end point probably, with me anyway, is matures that are attracted to adolescence.
That's already a thing.
Oh yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, but it will politically be emphasized as a group. That's a special group.
Oh,
They need
protected class.
protection. They are a protected class, and we need to ensure their rights.
See,
And I think it's the next step from this, because it's polygamy is what it is. They're just not married,
Yeah.
but they'll want them married.
Yeah.
That's the next thing with this is that you can marry two people.
see, years ago, when the Obergefell case came down in 2015, Dad and I made a bet. And he was convinced that the next thing that would come down the pike would be polygamy. And I said, no, I think they'll do bestiality first and then they'll do polygamy. I lost that bet.
Yeah.
Bestiality, I mean, is still, I guess, accepted in some weird fringe circles, but the
You know why, don't you?
why?
Because they feel sorry for the animals.
Weirdly enough,
No,
And-
the
and it's-
animals.
as debased
if
as
it's
that is, you're
progressive,
That's
probably
probably
right.
true.
animals are on a higher plane than human beings are.
Oh, I agree. It's ridiculous.
Isn't it? That's absolutely true.
No, I think you're probably right.
I mean, yeah, I think if you don't have, especially the people who don't have children, I mean, we've turned them into veritable children. Now, I get that. I was a little bit more, I guess, sympathetic to that before I had kids, and then I had kids, and now my dogs mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
So I mean, like,
Well,
I had
is.
a good friend, a couple that would they referred to their dogs as their fur babies, and they referred
Oh,
to
yeah.
themselves as dog dad and dog mom. Yeah, they got 4 kids now. They don't do that no more.
I don't either.
well, I can say this. I've always said this. You know how much I love my dog, Caleb.
Oh yeah,
You realize that.
I do too.
I love old Deets.
I
Deets was
helped
about
raise
to be
him.
8 years old.
Yep.
But I always made a vow, and this is absolutely true. As much as I think of that dog, if it ever hurt a child, I'd shoot him myself.
Oh, if a dog ever hurt my child, I would be shooting that
I-
dog
I-
and
I
then
would shoot the
parading
dog.
it through the streets.
He would. I don't think he'd
As a
hurt a
warning.
fly, but you don't hurt a child or a person. Not just a child, a person. I couldn't
right.
stand for that. That's because humans are on a higher level of value than a dog is, or any other animal for that matter.
See, that used to be a foregone conclusion.
Right,
Yeah,
it's-
when I was growing up, that was automatic.
Right. It's
But of course,
not.
you do know that it's against the law to shoot a dog.
Well,
Well, I mean,
I get my
I mean,
chances if I got
There was a time, but there was a time when you could do that, and you can't do that anymore.
Oh yeah.
It's against the law.
I mean, I understand that because property rights. but like based on the situation, obviously, if a dog is attacking a person, the person's life should obviously take precedence.
Sure.
But
I don't mean to
The
get
law
the
makes
weeds
that
with this,
exception
but
right. I know.
but all the nth degree that we have taken with the sexual morals that we have, which is going away by the day.
Do you remember, Dad, the way that the Bible describes the world right before the flood comes?
Yes.
What's the verbiage that it chooses? What does it use there?
They were sinful always, all the time. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but it was an abomination, and they were sinful always, all the time.
Yeah, and it also
Is the way
said
described it.
Everyone did what was right in his own eyes.
No, that's Judges.
Ah,
See, this is why women shouldn't be studying theology.
exactly.
But no, seriously, what it actually says is that man was inventing new ways to do evil.
Okay.
And that's kind of where I think we are with the whole sexual deviance thing, is that we've gotten to the point to where we've gone so far past the Rubicon that now people are just trying to come up with new ways to be sexually deviant because they don't have any other way to exist. That's how far we've come on that one. But anyway, we'll go ahead and go on to my next grievance, which I think both of yours were probably better than this one because y'all's was like actually spiritual and existential. Mine's really more of a personal gripe. But I am ticked off at inflation because
That's not personal. It's everybody's problem.
well, yes, it is. But this is the thing that really drove me over the edge. I went to Subway not too long ago, and I was just going to run by, get a quick sandwich. I don't eat at Subway that often, but I do like Subway because it's a quick, easy meal. You can get in and get out. You guys remember the commercials? It was an ad, and they did this for years, the $5 footlong.
Yes.
Right. The $5 footlong thing that they used to do.
Yeah.
And I basically lived off of Subway when I was in college because there was one right next to my condo. And I did the $5 footlong. I'd eat half of it and then half of it later, and then basically $2.50 a meal. I went into Subway and got the same footlong I've been getting at Subway since I was like 20 years old, and it was $14.
Mm-hmm.
And the $5 footlong isn't like a decade ago. I don't think that went away until like 2018, 2019, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that. That is almost tripled in price. And I know that not every single menu item at the restaurant has done quite that, but if you're reading really anything as far as menu prices or whatever, the inflation has just gone insane.
Well, I'll go back further in decades. You've heard me say this one before. When I was in high school, Laura, I went by and got the same thing every day. We were so excited to have a Hardee's because we'd never had one of those before. So I worked half a day. I would stop by my big combo, which was a big twin combo back then. The charbroiled burger, it was $2.07 with tax.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
You can't get a candy bar for that now.
No, you can't.
You can't get a drink for sure. And
but don't worry, guys. This was the fourth cheapest Thanksgiving ever.
Oh my gosh!
Fourth cheapest.
In what world?
That's what the White House reported.
Yeah.
They said, okay.
Well,
like
I can
anybody
read.
who's ever been to the grocery store knows better.
I know it was. I almost respect it in a sense. Like that level of gaslighting to me, I almost respect it because like you have to have a set on you to be able to just look at people and lie to them to their face and know what you're saying doesn't make any sense.
Oh yeah.
Like there's almost a level of brazenness that I respect, that they're just willing to tell you to not believe your lying eyes.
Well, I heard on Progress Network or Radio Network, look, things are a few dollars more now. It's not that big of a deal. But we can't have Trump in the White House.
Oh
That's
my
what I heard.
gosh.
That's what they said.
The average American is spending $700 more a month right now. And here's what I think. Democrats are constantly playing to the woman vote, right? Who's doing the grocery shopping?
So
Ain't gonna work for him.
I'm old enough to remember, because I'm more than 4 years old, back when Donald Trump's economic policies went into place, and it showed with the tax cuts and a couple of other things that the average American was bringing home roughly $100 to $120 more a month. And I remember all the people on the left was like, oh yeah, $100, $120 a month extra. Like, what's that going to buy? But now that your grocery bill has doubled, they're like, oh, well, that's not that big a deal. Like the shamelessness that they will go to is
Oh, it's
just
sad.
absurd.
I will take mean tweets any day. Any day.
Yeah, Mel, me too.
All right. So, Laura, you're up next. What you got?
I don't remember. What do I got?
I mean, I can tell you what you got if you want me to.
Oh, I got it. Okay. This is my personal issue, guys. And again, I'm having to narrow down because I got a lot of problems with people. But extroverts' approach to a person reading a book. Okay, listen, extroverts, I love you, sort of. But if I'm sitting here reading a book, the proper question is not, what you reading? What's it about? It's leave me alone. I'm reading a book. Look at the title. I probably have it held up. You could probably see the title on it, which is just learn to read.
We make conversation that way, you know. I'm one of those.
I don't want a conversation. I'm reading a book.
Okay. Okay.
I will say it is annoying if you're reading a book. Like, to me, that's the sign, that's the universal sign of I don't want to talk to you.
Yes.
And I'm fine with that.
Well, see, I would be abrupt with you, Laura. I'd say, hey, do you want to read or you want to talk to me?
I'd talk to you.
Yeah.
I'd probably beat you with the book first. But
I will say that about Dad. He is an extrovert, but he also doesn't beat around the bush.
No, not a bit.
He's very direct.
I
as
am
well one
direct.
should be.
Yeah.
I
So-
can deal with that.
I understand that one, though. I get that. That's a personal thing.
I feel you.
I guess I was thinking more broad-based. I usually think that way anyway. You want my second one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Saw this on a Bill Maher clip.
Okay.
And this one, there's a man, and y'all probably know who he is. He's a YouTube icon. He's made more money off YouTube than anybody else. He's got a goofy name. I don't remember who it is.
Is it Mr. Beast?
I think that's who it was. I'm almost certain. I was talking to Josh about this and Casey earlier, and we kind of narrowed it down to him. And he helped a lot of people.
Sure.
He dug wells in Africa and supplied water for over 500,000 people. He also sent in doctors to provide surgery, glaucoma surgery.
Oh, that is
And
Mr. Beast. Yeah.
That's Mr. Beast.
I saw
okay?
that story. Yeah.
You saw the story. Well, he helped people, and he was vilified for doing it because all he wanted was clicks. That's what he was accused of doing, just doing it for attention and clicks. And because he was white, too, he should be ashamed of himself for helping all those people. Is really how it broke down. And Bill made great points with that. Because he said, you know, the people that were starving to death for water really don't care if he gets clicks or attention. They just want the water because they have people dying because of it. And then with regard to people that have never seen anybody anymore or before because they're blind, and then they take the surgeons in, they get the surgery and they're able to see now, they really probably don't care either what the guy's motives were.
Nope.
And he's doing something, and the loudmouths that fuss about it aren't doing anything that we're aware of at all. Because what they want is a program with the government to take care of all those kind of things. And they want to shoot their mouth off, and he's actually doing some good with the money and the power that he has, which is a great thing. You can't be good anymore.
I'll give you
You'll
that.
be questioned.
But I mean, you know, there is something to the biblical concept of, you know, do your good deeds in private. But at the same time, with this guy doing it for the clicks, perhaps you can look at it as he's also bringing awareness to this issue.
That too.
I mean, there's both sides to that.
Well, it's kind of, from his standpoint, I don't mean to just defend him. I don't even know who he is. But what real difference does it make? And he's already getting enough clicks. He doesn't.
He's white. That's the
It's
problem.
because he's white, and it's a shameful thing. When do we get to the point that you can't do anything good for people?
Well, you can if you're white.
Well, now I'll say this about it, and this was kind of my takeaway from that whole situation. This is something that I've always said is great about capitalism, is that, you know, agree with the internet or whether or not it's made America a better place or not, which I think is a fair debate to have. Here's the thing about any capitalist nation. It utilizes a person's incentive structure to benefit other people. Because, and this is true with the Mr. Beast story. Yes, he did something. Maybe his motive was just to get clicks. I don't know, maybe. But to do so, he kind of had to help an awful lot of people along the way to make that happen. I mean, it's the same way with Bill Gates. I don't even like Bill Gates politically. I don't, care for him much. He's not really my cup of tea. But his product has made my life infinitely better, which is part of the reason he has some of my money.
Well, here's the thing, son. If I'm blind or if I'm thirsty, I don't really care what his motives are.
Oh, no.
And I would
Same
be
thing.
grateful and thankful for that.
Well, Dad, if you're hungry on the road and you see a Wendy's and you stop and eat, you don't really care what the politics of the guy working at Wendy's is either.
No, but it couldn't care less.
That's my point.
Number one, it's none of my business.
There is an incentive to help people and do things that are beneficial to them regardless of your motives. And that's the best thing about capitalism is it bypasses the motive.
Mm-hmm. So that's mine.
No, I totally agree. So here's mine, and I'll go ahead and give this one because I think that Laura will get a kick out of this one too. Mine, and this is a real point of contention for me, is men being way too passive.
Yes.
Like, part of the masculine ethos has always been and always should be to take initiative. That's what men are. We are the initiative takers. That's why when it comes to relationships, we're the one that's supposed to ask the woman out. We're supposed to ask the woman to marry us. When it comes to being able to go out and make gain, you're supposed to be the person that's active and takes initiative. And that doesn't mean that women can't take initiative. But my point is, when it comes to being a dad, you're always the one that has to forge a relationship with your kids. The initiative always lies on you. That's part of what being a man is to have the ambition to go out there and actually do things, and not just to provide, but also to protect. And the thing that kind of made this stick out to me, this was a story that happened just a few days ago, I don't remember what state it was in. I want to say it was in Kentucky. It was a swim meet, and they had a 50-year-old trans woman, which is a dude that thinks he's a girl, going into a high school locker room filled with like little girls and high school age girls changing into their swimsuits. And my initial reaction was, of course, that's bad, and that transgender person should never be allowed to do that. But my other reaction was, were there no dads at this thing? Because even if it means me going to jail, and I'm not even a dad, if I saw a 50-year-old man dressed as a woman trying to walk into a little girl's locker room to change clothes, I'd punch that guy out.
Oh, I'd stop that.
100%.
Right. And I'm just like, have the men in this country just gotten so passive that we'll just tolerate anything?
Best book I read of 2023, and I'd probably contradict that again, but one of my favorite books I read was The Toxic War on Masculinity by Nancy Pearcey.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard it's really good.
Amazing book.
I've not read it yet.
Amazing. You would love it. But and she makes that case. She's like, men have become passive, and it's because we made them that way. We kind of forced men into that, and it's a horrible thing to see. And I fully intend, Matt and I both intend to make sure our sons are not that way.
Well, in past generations, the thing that would have been difficult. Oh, John's having an episode there. He's taking initiative. But anyway, in past generations, what would have happened in a situation like that is it would have taken a team of police officers to pull that guy off of the person trying to go into the girls' locker room.
Yeah.
Now it's the opposite. Like, we have to drum up that natural male instinct to protect people. Well, I agree. But my point is, like, used to our problem with men was that they were too far the other direction from time to time, and we had to dial that back. Now we can't even dial them up.
Oh, 100%.
And it's a sad state of affairs to see it in, because I mean, I think that a lot of the problems, not all the problems, but a lot of the problems in the country that we're talking about would be fixed if men just actually fulfilled their actual God-given role.
I'll go along with that. That is good. That's a good one.
And hallelujah.
All right, well, I got an amen. All right, Laura, what's your last one?
Taylor Swift. No, sorry.
Look, she's cute.
I'm okay with that.
Who cares?
No, I'm with Laura on this
Here's
one.
my thing. Okay, why are there women who are self-respecting 30-year-old women that are like moms going to not even the concert, the theater, to see a movie of a concert, dressed up in ridiculous clothing, wearing friendship bracelets like what we used to wear when we were like, I don't know, 2, 5, I don't care. All I know is they're going to these stinking things. You're a mother, for goodness sake. Show some self-respect. And for what? For
well,
what?
They did the same thing with Miley Cyrus, didn't they?
I don't know.
Didn't they have a movie, the Montana movie?
Did you guys see the Babylon Bee article that Taylor Swift got traded to the Giants?
No, yeah. I didn't see that.
Okay, but that's the other thing. Women are watching football. Why? Because Taylor Swift is dating a football player.
So
Like,
Yeah.
I have a theory
either
on
like
that.
it or not.
I think a bunch of Kansas City fans got together and paid Taylor Swift to do that just so they would have an excuse to get their wives to
Kansas
watch
City
football with
fans
them.
don't have enough money to do that.
Well,
They don't.
probably
No.
not.
I mean, her music isn't even that good. I'm sorry. It's not.
See, I've been on the hate Taylor Swift bandwagon since the beginning, so, you know.
Well,
It doesn't make sense.
I liked her and defended her
Why?
because when I was a
Are
teacher,
you a Swiftie?
oh, I don't even know what that. I mean, I know what it is, but no, I've personally never bought anything she's ever had. Your sister does.
Yeah,
She likes her,
she does.
but the reason that I defended her, Laura, is because the teenage girls would say, "I hate her. She's stupid. She looks bad." All that and that was just envy. And I defended the child because I said that to me she was a little girl because she was like 16 or whatever. And I did so because I wanted to point out how jealous they were of her. And I do think she's talented. I know she's a great writer. She's a good writer. I mean, you can
She
debate
writes
her.
breakup songs.
Oh, I know she writes breakup songs, but she wrote some really good breakup songs. Now, I wouldn't spend a nickel to go across the street to see her, just for the novelty of it, maybe. But as far as spending a lot of money for a concert, I would never do that.
Oh, you
I
have
would
to
for
spend
George
a
Strait,
ton of
but I
money to
wouldn't.
go.
Huh?
Yeah, like her concerts are extremely expensive.
Yeah, well, actually, some of hers are not as bad as some of the others are. She does market her own tickets, and she's kind of like that as Garth Brooks is. And you can take him or leave him either, but they try to do better by their fans than a lot of the other acts and groups do.
See, I don't like Garth Brooks on a number of levels.
Yeah.
But the difference between him and me not liking Taylor Swift is that I do actually like
Astronomical.
Garth Brooks' music.
Yeah.
Like Garth Brooks'
Garth
music
Brooks
is
has good
amazing.
music. I'll give it
Oh,
that.
and I don't know anything about her
But Taylor
pop
Swift's
stuff.
music is terrible. And like I think I
I
have
don't know
equal
anything
issue
about
with
that.
Swifties as I do with Taylor Swift.
Mhm.
Like I take issue with both. I'm sorry, but if you're a 30-year-old woman and you're fangirling over, okay, late 20s, 30s and above, you gotta quit. You can't be fangirling over a pop star like that. You're just grow up a little.
Meet a guy.
Yeah, meet a guy. Even
Well-
if you do meet a guy, some of these are married. Like some of these women are married. What in the world?
Oh, I actually heard a girl not too long ago. This was a story that was given to me by one of my students. And he said that there was a girl that said she couldn't date him because he's not a Taylor Swift fan. I was like, boy, she's going to have a hard time finding a fella.
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Back when women had standards like a manly man.
Would you say the same
A
thing about
strong
me
man.
because I'm a huge George Strait fan?
No, I mean, are you wearing friendship bracelets to go to like the concert?
I got a shirt on here. I think that's no, this one's not. This one's an Ariat, but
I don't know, buddy. You're not really my type.
Dad
anyway.
immediately punches his own mic.
did I? Yeah. Well, I was just trying to see if I had. I was trying to see if they had the lasso on. Or not.
Yeah. Now I'm actually wearing George Strait jeans right now. So
Yeah.
That is just that music's at least respectable. But you gotta admit, like the Taylor Swift fans, they go all out on a
Oh,
level.
yeah.
It's like
I mean,
almost
of course.
idolatrous.
It
I'm not
is.
saying it is idolatry, but I'm saying it's almost.
well,
Yeah.
there are some idol worshipers and that's probably true at any concert. But
And there are some aspects of her concerts that are idol worshiping. I will say that is an issue.
yeah, I mean, I don't think you can blame that on Taylor Swift. Like, you can't help it if people do that. But
No,
either way.
it's in her concert. Like some of the stuff on her sets. That's legit.
Okay, well, we don't have time to dive into all that, but I'll take your word for it. Dad, what's yours?
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to my last one, right?
Yep, the last one.
All right. How we manage classes and relate to students in public education.
Okay,
Homeschool.
I'm all ears.
Well, okay. This year, there's a high school in Alabama, Laura, that has a litter box for the furries. Okay. That's not off somewhere else. That's in the red
Where?
conservative state of Alabama,
Where?
Sinclair County. Okay, it's up northeast of Birmingham.
I was about to say,
Wild.
Laura, I don't know why
Right.
I don't understand why you're surprised, Laura. You led the charge against gay porn in Prattville's library.
Still
So
going strong, but what in the world?
Yeah, well, we have that.
Letterbox?
We have grown people, administrators, supposed to be well-educated people, that are letting this happen, and we have people that are classified as non. Now, I dealt with this myself as a teacher in class. We had a nonverbal kid. Uh, we were told if she couldn't be verbal that day, she didn't have to say anything.
Whoa,
And
wait, what do you mean nonverbal that day?
Nonverbal that day.
I mean, I don't know if you can like pick and
There are
choose that if
certain
you actually
times
have a real
She,
disability.
yeah, there were certain times she had such high anxiety that she couldn't talk that day.
No, see, that's not a thing. You're either verbal or nonverbal. You're not verbal some days and verbal.
Yeah, and I understand I understand the difference, but I'm saying that
right.
We're acknowledging this, and we're doing backflips to accommodate all this stuff. And I don't understand it, and it's undermining education.
Yes.
And we have so many things going on, and you can't even look at them the wrong way. You have to be so careful. And I filled in teaching this year, some off and on, and I do that all the time. And they get offended because I call them this and that.
What do you call them? Furry face?
No, I call them what I say. Is this going to help me with it? Instead of saying boy, girl, he, she, I say this, that.
They get a this and a that.
Yeah, because
very Dr.
that way,
Seuss.
A little bit. And I'm trying to make a point with it too. They said, why do you keep calling us this? I said, well, because I'm told that we can't assume what gender you're aspiring to be. So how am I supposed to know the difference unless you tell me? So I do this and that, and then there's no way you can assign me with any. You see, and I make a point about it. And one little girl got frustrated. She said, "You can say he or she." I said, "Well, not according to what I'm hearing out there."
See, now
I can't make the assumption of
the funny thing about that is that means is as silly as it is, a bunch of teenagers have more sense than the people running the school, at least on that one issue.
Yeah.
And of course, you know me. I'm just making a point with.
Oh, I know you.
And they don't bug me on that.
And to that, and I'm sure my audience would understand this too after having to listen to me for a while. Do you have any idea how much fun I would have in high school if I were back in high school now with all of this mess?
Yeah, probably so.
You would, in fact, identify as Clark Kent.
Well, I mean, so my whole thing about the reason, and I've told YouTube this, and we're probably airing on YouTube right now, that I identify as a very attractive Hispanic woman. And my traffic actually did go up after I started doing that.
Oh,
well. My name's Rosita, if anyone's wondering. But anyway, so we'll go ahead and jump on to my final one. I appreciate that, Dad. This is a big gripe for me. Security at public events. And it just, they treat you like a criminal.
They do.
They really do. And one of the worst ones out of all the ones I've seen, because I've been to a lot of baseball games, the Atlanta Braves have gotten to be by far the worst one that I go to.
Oh gosh, it's uncomfortable going to a game now.
It's you. They pick you out. I swear.
Security people hate me, and it's not just a problem in America. No. I got strip searched 3 times in Germany.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with him.
There's got to be a story.
I don't know what the deal is, but Caleb,
it's your hair.
Caleb is pulled every time.
Every single time.
If I never go with him anywhere, they pull him to the side. I didn't even know where you were.
You had the perp walk going on.
The last
I don't know what it is.
I didn't remember where you were because I didn't know I lost him because he'd been taken somewhere. I did.
At Auburn,
At
Auburn, they took me, the last Auburn game I went to, they took me out of line and I had to go in through a special gate.
What'd you do?
I brought an umbrella.
Was it going to rain?
Yes, it rained most of the game.
Did they like your umbrella?
They said they had to inspect the umbrella. I'm like, well, it does have a machine gun in it, and they did not like that joke. They did not think it was
I got
funny.
a genuine question about this. Y'all are younger people. Maybe you know technologically. Why can't they know who the person is and everything about them to buy the ticket? They know everything about you anyway. And if you buy the ticket, if you can run that ticket through, they know who it is that's coming in. Isn't that
what if
true?
you bought the ticket for somebody else?
Yeah, I know that. I mean, I guess that's the point. And then you could figure it out if I mean, there's got to be some, face
Maybe you should be
identification
like
with a machine
subject
or
to a
something.
background check before
I
you buy
don't know.
tickets.
I mean, I wish we had a code or like an ear tag with an animal, son, that we could, if you've gone through most of your life from 60 years old, never shot anybody, never done, all I've ever done is a little speeding ticket or parking ticket. Isn't there some kind of way to be identified as a decent human being?
I don't
And
know.
you kind of make it easier going through technology. They can help with that because you're a lawyer.
Do you know how many mass
We just
shootings?
assume all are depraved.
Do you know how many mass shootings and mass bombings have happened at like public sporting events?
Yeah. Well, the Boston thing, the race.
Yes, that's the only one I could think of.
I can think of.
And that one was available to the public and just was out in the streets.
Yes.
There was no way to really do security for that one.
Right.
I can't think of any other one. Not a single one in a stadium.
Like public events or public places, because there's a lot of those.
No, just like a public sporting event. Like there was the Las Vegas shooting at a concert, but again, that wasn't inside a stadium. That was out in the street. And so they're treating it like it's this massive flashpoint where there's tons of terrorism going on or something, but I can't remember a single instance of that ever happening.
I don't know too many terrorists that would go to a baseball game as too American.
Well, I mean, that might be
a
true
long
too,
time before y'all were born, the Israeli athletes were killed. That was back in the 70s. And that was a terrorist, and that was pinpointed. That wasn't a mass kind of murder. It wasn't just trying to. But that's the only thing that popped into my mind. And, I think that.
Well, it reminds me of the same kind of ridiculous thing. One of the last places to lift mask mandates were airplanes, which made no sense because every study we did over and over and over and over again proved they were not vectors of infection. And so I think it's the same kind of thing with the sporting events. It's like they treat these things as though they're a very high risk for a terrorist attack or a mass shooting. And I literally can't think of an occasion of that happening.
Well, years ago, before all of this, son, there were people at Auburn University that walked in there that had guns because they had guns on them all the time.
That's the South.
Huh?
That's the South.
Yeah, that's just the South. That's the way that is.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean,
and they never thought about shooting anybody. They just carry a gun with them all the time.
Yeah.
Well,
you have the right to do.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that there haven't been a whole lot of shootings, like mass shootings inside churches, since the one that happened in what was it? Springs? Something Springs?
You mean in like it was South Carolina?
No, Summer Springs, Texas.
Oh.
Yeah, that one.
That one, and then there was another one at a Church of Christ in Texas where he killed 2 people, and then he was immediately shot by like 8 different people that were armed. And have you noticed that there haven't been a whole lot of mass shootings in churches since that happened?
I mean, I think about it. You're right.
I can tell you this.
People carry in church.
Well, Gold Springs will get shot.
Yeah.
I mean, they really will.
Same at
we
my
got
church.
a couple of people that are pretty good, actually. They've had some training, and I feel pretty safe. I'm not one of them.
I mean, we carry in church everywhere we go.
I know there are plenty of people like you. I don't carry a gun, but I'm glad people do and feel safer. And it's probably because of the reaction of churches. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's possible. But either way, I'm just pointing out that it seems like they're making a big deal out of it. And you know, Dad, with the Atlanta Braves, they've had me go through and have to take my boots off and roll my jeans up and take off my shirt. I did tell one guy, like, I got mad at him. He was metal detecting me, and every time he got right around to the front of my pants, it went off. I was like, they're jeans, genius. Like, they have a metal button in them. Do you want me to take them off?
Maybe they're gay, Caleb. Have you considered that?
I mean, he probably was. I don't know.
I don't know.
But
maybe they think you're attractive.
But Dad's right. I don't know what it is, but like every time there's any kind of security, I always get pulled aside. That's just the way that it is. I guess I'm just a scary individual. I don't know. But anyway, all right. So I feel like that was a pretty good airing of grievances. And what we'll do is we'll take a quick break here, and we'll come back in just a second on tactics.
Speech isn't violence. Tolerance isn't love. Disagreement isn't hate. You're listening to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt. If you want to hear more, subscribe to him on YouTube, like him on Facebook, or follow him on Twitter at Tactics Radio.
All right, gang, welcome back, and thank you so much for being with us here for our big Festivus episode here on Tactics, where speech isn't violence, tolerance isn't love, and disagreement isn't hate. Thanks so much for being with us here on the program, and we do have, as always, a Christmas-themed question for our panelists. So this year I thought we'd do something a little bit different. I've asked them to list their top 5 holiday traditions. So we'll go ahead, and as always, we start out with the ladies. So Laura, you can go ahead and start us out.
Well, my Christmas traditions, my favorite right now, are pretty reflective of my stage in life. So as a mom, and more to the point, as a breastfeeding mom, which comes important when you think about how hungry breastfeeding women are. But so number 5 for me is reading the books I got for Christmas. If you know me, I'm a very avid reader.
Right.
And so if it's a Christmas where I don't get books, I don't think that's ever happened, honestly. So my favorite thing afterwards is to read the books. I get excited.
Okay.
4, boiled custard. Is that just a Southern thing? I don't know. I love it.
Until you told me about it, I'd literally never heard of it. And by the way, I want to point out that while I'll allow it, I do think that this is kind of cheating, because last year we did our top 5 Christmas foods, and you also had boiled custard.
It was so good.
You're double dipping on this one.
I'll say it's amazing. I get excited about it. Number 3 is Christmas dinner, because I can eat a lot. Like I don't. Maybe it's the breastfeeding mom thing. I don't have to tell you. I can consume a ton of calories right now. But yeah, I get excited.
Fair enough. I like Christmas dinner too.
So good. Reading the 2 is reading the night before Christmas with James. It's become our tradition. We read that with him, and he loves it. He gets excited.
Do you actually read it on Christmas Eve, or?
We do on Christmas Eve.
Okay, cool.
Loves that.
Nice.
And then number
Classic.
1, always and forever, is Callaway Gardens Fantasy and Lights. They have the best light show.
That is good.
It's so much more fun now with kids.
Yeah, I've only been once, but it is a lot of fun. I remember the first time that I went, and you go by the pond, and they have those just like thousands of lights over the pond.
Yes.
And two thoughts came into my mind when I saw that. One was, man, that's really pretty, and the second was, that is a lot of electricity on top of a lot of water. Because that's how my mind works. So yeah, no, I agree. Callaway Gardens, very good number 1. All right, so Dad, what about yours?
We'll start it with number 5, and this is the first thing that popped into my mind, this particular list, and but going bottom up, sharing Christmas memories from the past, things that happened in the past. That's one of the things we do. Remember when we were a particular place, and a particular gift, a particular situation where we were traveling. When y'all were growing up, it was a lot of traveling, that kind of thing at Christmas. When we went to Kentucky, remembering those things, that's one of the things.
I'll interject right there real quick. I like that you added that one, because I think Charles Dickens said, he didn't say it in the actual book A Christmas Carol, but they were asking him about where he got the idea for the 3 different ghosts. And he said, Christmas is a unique holiday because it's one that simultaneously exists in the past, present, and future. And so I thought that was a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Charles and I are pretty tight.
Yeah, no. He was from Titus.
And then I said presents. I enjoy presents too, and I enjoy giving them. That's a big part of it. Decorations. I like riding around looking at lights and seeing. I like tacky lights and I like classy lights. It's just according to, I can enjoy and appreciate both.
Oh,
and
I love that.
Huh?
I love that. I
Yeah.
like just riding around looking at them.
Yeah, I do. And that goes back to my childhood, really. I enjoy doing things like that. And there are some tacky ones in Elmore County. But there's some great
Not
ones.
in Elmore County.
Yeah, in Elmore County. But that's okay. Well, we had in our neighborhood growing up, there were people that decorated all year.
Yes, that is true.
They decorated for every season. And it was
that.
interesting to see what they were going to come up with next. They always had some kind of decorations. And then one thing I love is the music. I listen to a lot of the music. There are tons of songs from Bing Crosby to David Bowie.
Yeah,
we did one together.
You're speaking Laura's language right now.
I haven't got to listen to it as much this year because I've been having to listen to Frosty the Snowman over and over and over.
Yeah.
I'm guessing James likes that one.
He loves the thumpity thump thump line.
I like the traditionals from the old artists, from Gene Autry to Mannheim Steamrollers. Is that the one of them? I like them. I like a cappella. I like choirs. that's one of the things I'll listen to them too,
You
and
know,
watching. And I'll say this along with it: the music Christmas shows. I like Dolly Parton and all the ones that they have. So that's one of the things. And then
real
go
quick,
ahead.
I'm a big fan of Trans-Siberian Orchestra. They're the only trans
I
group
love
that I
that.
They are
enjoy.
good. Huh?
They're the only trans group I enjoy.
And then finally, and it's not perhaps the motivation you may think, but it's the Christmas movies. And the reason the Christmas movies are, and you saw me earlier, Laura, my Grinch stuff, and I sent Caleb out to do this every year. I send Casey, I watch the thing, I send her pictures of how the Grinch, and Max mainly, because he's my hero. And whatever the movie is, we share memories from the movies when we watch them together, and the ones that meant the most to us. So it's not because of the movie itself, but I can't have Christmas without It's a Wonderful Life or Rudolph, or there's several that I always watch every year. And I'm a grown man. I'm a 60-year-old man, and the other night I watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
That is a good one.
It's really good.
That one, and it's Christmas time again. Charlie Brown are my every
Charlie
year.
Brown. Laura, I'll tell you, I went so far this one time in the pulpit. I think the best reading of Luke 2 is by Linus.
Yeah.
I think that's the best rendition of that I've ever heard.
I've loved having a 2-year-old this time, because he's just getting into Christmas stuff. And so I get to show him these Christmas movies for the first time.
And that's fun.
And he loves it. So it's like, I love these movies anyway, but getting to watch him experience it now, best thing ever. Frosty the Snowman's his favorite movie and music. And just watching it through his eyes, watching him light up when he watches like Elf. Yeah. My kid loves Elf. Elf is my favorite Christmas movie.
You want to talk about some staying power? Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is what, 60 years old now?
It's 60 years old. I probably recognized it the first time at 4, and I'm still 60 watching it, and he will be too.
Oh,
you see what I'm saying?
He's going to love that. Well, and then what was that movie? Miracle on 34th Street. I think that came out in the 30s.
Sebastian Cabot.
Yeah, and it's sustained through time.
It's just pro
Maureen O'Hara.
Same thing.
Yeah,
that movie is just pro propaganda for the post office. I'm convinced of that.
Obviously.
But that was so well done, and it was respected, and it's so amazing to me that It's a Wonderful Life wasn't that popular to begin with, but it's just become an American iconic movie and one of the best ones that's ever been done in the history of motion pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dad will tell you this, Laura. I'm somewhat well known for my Mr. Grinch voice.
Go ahead.
Because I have a bass. Yeah. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
That's pretty good.
You have garlic in your soul.
There you go.
That's good.
So, I've been doing that for a really long time. Well, I say that since I was 17 and my voice actually became where it could do that. But
I know how old you are. That has been a very long time.
It's been a while. It's been a while. All right. So I'll go ahead and give my top 5. Dad will undoubtedly recognize several of these. Laura might require a little more explanation because mine are very specific.
Is it because I'm blonde?
No, it's because you're a woman.
Oh.
I have to explain things to you.
Makes sense.
I'm so getting banned after this episode. All right. My number 5 is stockings with peppermint patties. So that's been a long-standing thing for me. Yes.
Oh, those are good.
I don't know why, but I guess it is because it's kind of Christmassy because it's a mint. But ever since I was little, it didn't really feel like Christmas unless I had.
He is going to eat those mints.
I do love peppermint patties.
He's going to eat peppermints.
And generally, I'm more of a Reese's guy, but at Christmas, I want peppermint patties.
As well, one should.
Even though the Reese's trees are also very good. Number 4, tacos and salsa, which I know doesn't sound like a Christmas tradition, but every year when we go over to my grandfather, my mother's father's house for Christmas, he always makes tacos and salsa. And so
Feliz Navidad.
That's right. The little Christmas south of the border, even though we're all extremely white. Number 3, shooting with my cousin Jacob. So every year, this has been a tradition for about 4 or 5 years now. Every year when I go up there to visit him and my other family from Kentucky, we go out in the backyard and shoot things for a few hours. So little Christmas target practice, always fun. We even did it last year when it was like 20 degrees outside and everything was covered in snow, but it was fun.
That's the best.
We just wore like Arctic camo. That's and then number 2 is the drive home from Kentucky. So I go to Kentucky every year. I've been doing that since I was a little kid. Dad was usually the one driving up until recently. So he knows about that. And I have 2 traditions that I do. One is always stop somewhere on the way back for dinner, which in the past has usually been Denny's, but I've also taken a shine to Buc-ee's now that there's a Buc-ee's on the way.
Yeah.
All praise for Buc-ee's.
Yes. Love those sliced brisket sandwiches. And also, and this is a big one for me, Dad started this tradition, so this will mean a lot to him. Every year I listen to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe on audiobook driving home. And it works out almost perfectly. So 2 years ago, for example, I was listening to it on the way back, and the audiobook literally stopped as I was pulling into the intersection like 2 minutes down the road from here. So like it's almost exactly the right amount of time for a drive from Franklin, Kentucky.
And when I found that, I'd never heard of the book before.
Me either. I was 8 or 9 years old, I think.
Yeah, and I was a grown man.
That's classic.
Yeah, I know, but not in my circles.
That's true. I mean, Church of Christ, we don't want to talk about.
Well, I wasn't Church of Christ. It was just.
Yeah, he was raised
never
Methodist.
had it. Yeah, I was Methodist, but I had never been exposed to it before. I don't know how I missed it, but as soon as it started playing, and I guess Caleb was listening to it too. Obviously.
I was. I can't sleep in the car.
Well, anyway, and I was listening to it myself. I said, "This is about Christ."
It's a wonderful allegory. I can't say I've read it.
Yeah,
I have not actually read it myself.
I haven't either.
I mean,
but
you can borrow one of my copies. I've got it right over there.
And then it became and I didn't know he was such an incredible person. He is an iconic person, writer, just one of the best Christian writers that's ever been since the apostles. I mean, I really believe that.
I'm about to do Abolition of Man with a book club. Yeah.
And as far as that was concerned, I picked up on it right off the bat, and meaningful book in our family for sure. And he's become a meaningful person, to have influence on us.
For sure. And so I thought that you'd especially appreciate that one because you actually kind of started that tradition.
Yeah.
But then my final one, my number 1 is the Grace Family Breakfast, which is great because it's my entire family, which my great-grandparents had 6 grandchildren. Had 6 children, and then they had a whole bunch of grandchildren, and then I'm the first of the great-grandchildren, so there's like 40, 50 people at this thing every year.
A lot of eggs.
Yes, there's a lot, and I actually, for the past 3 years, I've been cooking the eggs.
Went down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be the most expensive one ever, probably this year. But no, it's great. It's a time for us to all get together and joke with one another, and it's a bunch of breakfast food with biscuits and gravy, and so pretty much any event that has any of that with it, I'm going to be up for it. So I love it. It always occurs on Christmas Eve, so that's one of the reasons I go to Kentucky before Christmas Eve every year. A lesser tradition is that I go to Frosty Freeze the day before, but
yeah.
I don't care if it's 20 degrees outside. I'm getting a milkshake if I go there for Christmas. Anyway, all right. So that's our Christmas traditions, and we're going to move on with Festivus with the feats of strength. So Dad and I are going to wrestle for the next 20 minutes. And, no, I'm kidding. All right, we actually are going to do a Christmas tradition here. So you may have noticed in the background that I have a Christmas present back there, and then I also got presents for Dad and Laura. So, Laura, I'm going to ask you to do something a little different.
Okay.
I'm going to actually ask you, because the audience will get a kick out of it, to go ahead and open the presents, not only for you, but for the rest of your family, because I'm sure that the audience will get a kick out of that.
Don't wake that baby.
And then you can just, you can rewrap them. If that's good with you. Do we need to wait a second, or is John okay?
John's okay. Do you want to hold John?
Yeah, I'll be glad to hold that baby.
Okay.
Let's hope that baby doesn't cry. Come here. Yes, good gracious.
He's been so good this whole show,
he
too.
He has been so good.
You didn't hear him poop while we were talking?
No, I missed that.
Oh, it was loud. I'm really surprised you didn't hear that.
So that one's Dad's, I think. So, yeah.
Oh,
just
Dad?
Yeah, there we go. Just sit it down there.
There you go.
Yep.
All right. Oh.
So that one's the one with the Wonder Woman wrapping. That's yours.
Okay, well, I'll open that first. That's fun.
Yep.
So I need to go in any order, really?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So that one's you.
Oh, I get to be Wonder Woman. I feel like Wonder Woman is a mom these days. I wonder where I put things.
Right.
Wonder why my kid is quiet. A mug for coffee.
Yes, it is a coffee mug because I know you're a coffee person.
A snob of it. It's not riot. It's a mostly peaceful tree lighting. That's so good.
I had a feeling you'd like that.
I'm wearing Caleb's last year gift.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Happy
Fine.
Easter. Okay. Let's see. This one, Matt, James,
I think that one's
it's John.
James. Oh, no, that's John. Okay.
Oh my goodness. I can't wait to put this on him.
That's
Don't tread on me.
Which is important because you don't want to step on the baby
Oh,
accidentally.
perfect. He's about able to fit in this now. He's
I-
a big baby.
I had to guess a little bit on the size, but I thought that would be about right.
Yeah, that's gonna be perfect actually.
Good. I'm glad.
Oh, he's gonna love that. I'm gonna be excited about that too. Because that's fast.
Yep, that's Matt. This one was actually my favorite of the ones I got, y'all.
See, is that Ronald Reagan riding
No.
a T-Rex?
It's Ron DeSantis riding an alligator.
Oh my god. What's it say? Big D energy. Oh my god. It says own the libs.
Yep. Turn it around, show the camera. It says own the libs.
That is amazing.
I knew he'll get a kick out of that, I'm sure.
It's crying a river of tears. That's my new favorite. Dear Matt, I'm stealing your socks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could wear them
Surprises
too
no one.
if you want.
I've been stealing my husband's clothes since my last
Now, the other one I couldn't wrap because I was going to do gift bags, but I can wrap it afterward. So when you want to give it to James.
Oh, this one is going to be fun in my house.
So I told Laura before she opened any of them that my plan was to get them all things that would tick off liberals the most. And when I saw a Nerf gun that actually very much resembles an automatic firearm, I was like, that'll definitely do it.
That is perfect. It is 100% perfect. And I am probably going to call you very angry in a couple of days.
About the Nerf gun.
Yeah, because my son will love it, which means he's going to be shooting it at mommy.
Well, I also saw a drum that had the Incredible Hulk on. I was I don't hate Laura that much.
No.
I was like, I still love Laura and I want her to still like me, so I'm not going to go with that one.
I would have killed you.
Yes, I'm very much aware of that.
It's a horrible thing.
All right. Well, Dad, you want to go
I
next?
love him.
Yeah, Laura, just scoot it over here and I'll grab it. I got the baby.
You want me to take the baby back?
I guess you can. This was fun, though. No, this was fun. You can give him back a little bit. I'll get my little present here. I don't care.
Dad is great with kids. Always has been.
Yeah.
You can have it anytime you want.
We're on the same intellectual level. Is the thing. How about that? All right. That is a thick version of something I'll need this time.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you, son.
The world could use more flannel.
Yeah, thank you.
You're most welcome. All right, and Laura was kind enough to get me something, so I'm going to go ahead and open that as well.
It's from me and Matt.
Ah, thank you very much. Let's see what we got.
If you want it back, you can.
Yeah, I can take it back. That's fine.
I know Baby Snuggles are where it's at.
Yeah.
Well, it's a shirt of some kind. And I think I see our first Commander-in-Chief on here.
Yeah.
I went with the same theme.
It's George Washington holding a leftist tears tumbler. That's awesome.
I had to guess on the size. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm usually an XL, but I can definitely wear a large. XL just gives me a little extra breathing room.
Excellent.
So yeah, I definitely don't have a problem wearing a large. Thank you, Laura. That was great.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for ours. Boys are gonna love
Thank you too.
There we go. All righty then. So what we'll do is we'll take another quick break here, and then we're going to come back with one of my favorite traditions here on the show, which is the annual Daily Dose of Stupid Awards. So that'll be great. Looking forward to that. We'll be back in just a minute with that.
Speech isn't violence. Tolerance isn't love. Disagreement isn't hate. You're listening to Tactics with Caleb Colquitt. If you want to hear more, subscribe to him on YouTube, like him on Facebook, or follow him on Twitter at Tactics Radio.
And welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for being with us here on Tactics, where speech isn't violence, tolerance isn't love, and disagreement isn't hate. We're going to go ahead and go on with the Daily Dose of Stupid.
No, you messed it up. You're stupid.
All right, and as we have done every year for the past several years now, we're actually going to go with the Daily Dose of Stupid Award. So this is kind of a year in review thing where we go back over all the stupidest stories we saw all throughout the year, and we've come together, voted on them, sorted out a list that will hopefully entertain you, and these are the ones that we think are the dumbest. So we're going to go ahead and start out with the top 10. So let's go ahead and get to it.
The Tactics Top 10.
All right, so the way that this list works is we're going to go ahead and run through the top 10, and we'll go ahead and give you an honorable mention. Each one of us have selected a story that didn't make the list that we'll be talking about before we get to number 1. But for now, we're just going to start off with number 10.
Number 10.
Okay, and number 10 on the list this year, you guys know Representative Lauren Boebert. You know, campaigned as a conservative, family values, loves God, puts her faith first and puts her family values first and is all about her family. Well, until she got caught groping a man's crotch, a guy who, by the way, is not her husband, at a public event, and got kicked out of the performance for it. So, yeah, family values.
Yeah, that's.
On any level, that's just tacky. Even if you are married, but especially if you're not. But
Especially if you're trying to psupport like family values.
That too. Yeah, this in any. I mean, you don't do that if you're at a bar.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
It ain't right.
But especially.
And that's the thing too. Like, I don't know. I think the GOP has just gotten to the point to where, and I know that the low-hanging fruit here is to talk about Trump, but I do think that there's some legitimacy to this. The idea that because of what happened with Trump and the way that Republican voters no longer seem to be super concerned about the moral issues and appearing as though you're a very moral person, I think that that's kind of what happened here, is that representatives feel much more at ease about not really worrying too much about their image on stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think they just have to throw it out. It's kind of like how in Alabama all you have to do is like tote a gun and say, I love God and I like guns, and you get elected. It's kind of the same thing there.
I mean, you're not wrong on that, but it's a shame to see it because, you know, there was so much to be said. This is one of the things that I was warning about. And again, it doesn't all revolve around Trump, but that was, to me, a big flashpoint in that is that ultimately, when you're going through something like that, you don't cede the moral high ground to your opponent because it's something that's not exactly easy to take back.
Yep.
And Lauren Boebert just doing this and just sort of blatantly, you know, in front of God and everybody else, just completely ignoring the fact that you're in a public place. And I mean, to me, it's a lack of respect for your husband on top of all that as well. But just if you're going to market yourself that way, this is not the way you conduct yourself, ultimately.
I mean, you're in public, dude. What'd you think? You think you're going to get caught? Grow up with a man. Come on.
No, I mean, you're right on that too. If nothing else, just from the public, you know, interest there should be something that you would be worried about. But anyway, Let's go on and jump to number 9. Number 9 on this one, sweetheart deal with Hunter Biden, and the way that whole thing fell through. Even though they got somebody who they considered a very favorable judge and they kind of felt like they had it in the bag, you don't make a plea deal that gives someone blanket immunity for that and any other possible crimes that might be presented in the future. And when the judge saw that, was like, no. Like, even a Democrat appointed judge looked at that as like, yeah, we can't just give people immunity for future crimes based on getting immunity for a current crime. That's not a thing that you can do. And the fact that it blew up in their face, to me, demonstrates how confident they are in the fact that they're never going to be held accountable for any of their actions.
Oh, yeah. I think what's ridiculous is that, number one, America thought that was going to be a thing. And number two, they thought they could do it. But my goodness, when have you ever seen a plea deal that gives you immunity from anything from ever getting prosecuted for other things too? Like, no.
Well, and what's funny is it very much revealed their hand, because when the judge asked that question, Hunter Biden's legal team essentially asked, well, no, that's not what that means at all. And Hunter Biden goes, yes, it does. In fact, if that's not the deal, then I don't want to be a part of it. Like, they blew up their own plea deal. And I mean, Laura, you're an attorney, so you can speak to this probably quite a bit. The whole legal system is predicated on an adversarial system.
Yep.
Like, even John Adams is defending redcoats in order to make sure that they had legal representation. Even though he didn't like the redcoats and didn't want them there, he still felt that the law demanded that they have some form of representation to defend their rights.
Oh, yeah.
We've come a long way in our country when it comes to that, because now we're basically saying, well, the people making the plea deal, the prosecutors and the legal team are on the same side. Like, that's absurd.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know, it gets my lawyer stamp of stupid. Because, yeah, it's not how any of this works, guys. I mean, we make plea deals all the time.
Sure.
We do. But usually you get a pretty hefty penalty to waive a crime.
Right.
This is like you get a minor penalty to waive this crime and a whole bunch of other really heavy crimes.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing it didn't work, and it never was going to. But, the fact that it blew up does show that there's, I don't know, maybe at least a tiny little bit of legitimacy. But anyway, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Let's go ahead and move on to number 8. Okay, and number 8. The White House trying to make Bidenomics a thing. This was one that was actually very high on my list, so I got this one a lot of points. I'm kind of surprised it's that far down, and here's my rationale. Every single time people associate a politician's name with a thing, it's almost always a pejorative. So, for example, when Obamacare came out, people forget that the Democrats didn't call it Obamacare. Republicans called it Obamacare because they knew it was going to be a disaster and wanted to connect Obama's name to the policy. They constantly referred to it, and still to this day call it the Affordable Care Act.
Yes. Which
is hilarious because it's literally the opposite of that. It actually wound up costing people over $2,000 a year for a family of 4. But anyway, that's always what was associated with it. What to me is crazy is the Bidenomics things is they actually associated Biden's name with the economy, which they knew was crap when they came up with the name.
Yeah, but they're good at hiding it. And
you're gaslighting. They're good at gaslighting.
Yeah.
Well, they're good at confidently stating that it's good, but they're not good at hiding it. Like the latest public opinion poll, Biden's by far his least popular thing was the economy. Wasn't even close.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, they can people go to the grocery store, liberal,
right,
conservative, whatever. All you got to do is go to the grocery store, go out to eat, buy other products, buy clothes, all of those things. And because of transportation costs, that affects everything.
Mm-hmm.
And and all of that, and that's come down some, and there's some reasons why that's come down, and that's a little scary, to be honest, when you take out of our reserve, which flooded the market and made it go down. All of those things can't be good, and it can't be sustained either.
Well, and to your point, Dad, talking about reality kind of slapping them in the face, this is one of the reasons that I view this one as one of the stupidest stories of the year, is because there's a lot of things that, because the Democrats have a stranglehold on the media and are able to set narratives, they can do a pretty good job of gaslighting a lot of people. For example, this is just one example I'll pull out of nowhere, the border.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're in a border state, it's pretty easy to make people believe it's not that big a deal,
right,
because it's not something that's right in front of them all the time.
Right.
If it's something like what's going on in Israel, like big story, but because it's not something happening right in front of their face, and because they have a stranglehold on the media, they control what you see on that, they can kind of just throw that one under the rug and make sure that the people that they want to vote for them, the normies that aren't really paying attention to politics, they don't really see those things. You can't just look at a person straight in the face and tell them that their $200 a week grocery bill that's now $350 is not real. Like, that just doesn't work. And that's why I'm so astounded by that they voluntarily chose to associate Biden's name with it. Now, Barack Obama, for all his foibles, he was a lot smarter on the economy. Because you remember what he did was, he said, well, yes, the economy's bad and my policies are making it better, but it was really George Bush's policies that caused all that.
Bush.
Right.
By the way, let me pause just.
Go ahead.
Did you notice the numbers he gave? It went from 250.
That's 200 to 350.
Right. Well,
200 is still unheard of to me.
Well, well, it is, but you can tell he's single.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because $350 a month may feed one person like him. It won't feed a family.
Oh, he said a week.
Oh, he said a week?
Yeah, $200 a week.
Oh, okay. That's more in line. I'm sorry, I misheard it.
That's the average grocery bill for a family.
Okay, so you do have your numbers right. Okay.
I did my research, Dad.
Okay, you did.
That's pretty on par.
Well, I just know that in a family, it's $1,000 a month.
Oh. Right, easily.
It's over that.
Do you know that one of the things that's really crazy is because of inflation, for the first time in I think 30 or 40 years, Americans are now spending a larger percentage of their income on food than they ever have.
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh yeah.
Which is
that's absolutely true.
Even when the economy was bad in the Obama era, it never reached that point.
No.
Have you seen savings is like way, way, way down, and credit, racking up credit is sky high right now?
Well, honestly, I'm not saving anymore either, because why would I? If I save if I save money and then that money is no longer valued anymore, then I didn't save any money. And so that's why I've moved to things like Bitcoin and investing things in things that aren't dollars, because saving in dollars doesn't make any sense.
Well, there's just not room in most families' budgets now to even save.
That's also true.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, why would you want to coin something that's clearly not your strong suit in your campaign at all? Like,
I mean, that would
be downplaying your Bidenomics.
That would be like Bill Clinton, marital fidelity, or Donald Trump says nice things. Like,
yeah, what a nice guy.
Right. These are not your strong points, guys. But the whole thing is just silly that they've tried to make this into a selling point for Joe Biden. All right, let's move on to number 7.
Number 7.
Now, this one I think will go down in history as one of the dumbest marketing ideas in American history. Like, it's right up there with New Coke, in my opinion. Hiring Dylan Mulvaney as the spokesperson for your beer is one of the most idiotic financial decisions any business has ever made.
100%. I'm sorry, but most women are not big beer drinkers.
Right.
We're just not. I guess if you were to be a beer drinker, Bud Light might be your thing, because I've heard that it's kind of a weak beer. I don't know. I've never had Bud Light.
I genuinely don't know.
I'm not a beer drinker myself, so I don't know. But anyway, if you're going to market to mostly men, which is beer commercials market towards, you're not going to use a man to turn woman. You're just not. Stupid. I don't think Bud Lights recovered from that.
They still haven't financially, if you look at the numbers and you're looking at how they're selling. So here's the thing that happened with Bud Light. There are certain brands, and I've maintained this for a very long time. I remember a ton of conservatives were saying to me when the whole Colin Kaepernick Nike thing came out, they were like, oh, this is the end of Nike. This is going to destroy them. I was like, no. You have to know your audience. That's true in media. It's true when you're producing something. There are certain brands that can totally get away with being woke. If you're Starbucks, your average person that you're marketing towards is a middle to upper class white suburban woman. So yeah, totally cool with being on board with the woke stuff. You can do that. It'll be fine. It won't hurt your brand at all. Same thing with Target. That's their main core audience, so they can get away with, although even they've taken a little bit of a hit with the transing thing. But my point is, a lot of these brands, they can get away with that because their clientele are people that tend to agree with those talking points. Walmart, NASCAR, Bud Light, they can't get away with junk like that. They just can't do it.
No.
And they have not.
No, they haven't. Bud Light has taken it directly on the chin. They went from being America's #1 beer. I mean, like easily. There wasn't even really a close second. I think Miller was nipping on its heels, but they've still not financially recovered from that. And just the idea that you're going to take a product that is primarily consumed by middle America, working class people, and you're going to make the face of transgenderism your spokesperson for that. Like, there's not a single marketing person on planet Earth that would have thought that was a good idea if they weren't blinded by ideology.
Yeah, I've never seen businesses. I'm sorry, hon.
You're good. Go ahead.
Sabotage their own business
Right.
purposefully.
Yeah.
See, you would
don't
think
even, like, you'll go places now and they don't even sell Bud Light anymore because they're not going to make a profit.
Well, I don't even pay attention to that, I guess. I mean, I the media story, yes, but I mean, in the store, I don't.
You
even
want to
know.
look. It's fun. Like, go to a ballpark, Montgomery's Biscuits, they don't sell Bud Light anymore because they can't make money off of it.
Yeah.
And it's not that Montgomery isn't woke, because it is, but, you know.
Well,
you can't get it there.
You're correct that Montgomery is woke, but the Montgomery Biscuits are not.
Oh, yeah.
Because you go inside the stadium, it's a completely different crowd than the people outside the stadium. It's a bunch of rednecks from Wetumpka and Millbrook, and
That's a sweet spot,
right,
for minor league baseball for sure.
It is. And I'm not saying that there aren't like city people that like it too, because there are people like that go to the Biscuits. But in fact, I don't know if you noticed, Laura, but if you look over your left shoulder, that's actually a biscuit stocking right there.
Well done.
So,
Well done.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right that ultimately there was just a stigma created. And if there's one thing you don't want, like, if you know that your brand is frequented by people like that, you don't put a totem of the opposite of everything they believe. Like, for example, if you were Starbucks, I don't think them putting out a nativity scene in front of their coffee shop would be a smart idea, because that's not who they're marketing to.
Yeah.
Just the way that it is. So that's the main thing, the main takeaway from this one. Guys, know your audience. All right, let's go on to number 6.
Number 6.
All right, number 6. And this is a big one, especially for those of us that are paying attention to the media quite a bit. Fox News firing Tucker Carlson.
Speaking of knowing your audience.
That's mine.
100%. Yeah, that was one that Dad had ranked. I think you had that ranked number 1, actually,
I did.
Dad.
I had that.
Well, do you want to take that one then?
Well, the reason that I say that is because, and back to the sabotaging your own business, you take your number 1 guy, you know that people are more passionate about him than any other person that you have on the air, and that people talk about him. He's a water cooler guy that people are talking about at work because of what he said in his show, and then you get rid of him for an inexplicable reason, really, what I remember. Maybe y'all could help me with that. But there was just a backlash of that they haven't recovered from.
Oh, no. And here's the thing. Fox News, if you were to go back in time to like I would say early 2000s, late 90s, that era of Fox News, they could probably fire Bill O'Reilly and still be okay. because Bill O'Reilly was the flagship of this. But the thing is, that would have really hurt them to fire Bill O'Reilly. But they were such a powerful force, and they were really the only name in right-wing media at the time. They could probably have still survived and gotten away with it and done just fine, even without Bill O'Reilly. You can't do that in an era where cable is going extinct.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
now you've got competition like the Daily Wire, Newsweek, you know.
The Blaze, Louder with Crowder.
Yeah.
Even Drudge is doing some stuff now. So yeah, not only do they have competition, but on top of that, like just cable in general is a dying breed. I remember back when, you know, Bill O'Reilly, and I'm just using him because he was kind of in Tucker Carlson's position before Tucker was.
I loved his show.
Right. I mean, you know, kind of catered to people above our age demographic, but still a great show.
I'm an old woman.
Well,
at heart.
I am too, an old Hispanic woman. But back then, I think O'Reilly was pulling down like 25, 30, 40 million a night. Like Tucker Carlson, even though he was by far the most successful news commentator on any cable news network, he was still doing good to pull down 20.
Yeah.
And so honestly, the fact that he's now launched his own network, he's probably going to be better off than he was even back at Fox.
Well, he may be. And, you know, as far as Tucker, and I liked him, and sometimes he was edgy, and sometimes I didn't like what he said, just like a lot of other people. But the biggest thing about him is he made people think.
Oh, yeah.
And because of what he said, the dialogue that he had was interesting. Even if I didn't like it, I thought he was a fascinating guy to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
He had a different style. Sometimes it was annoying. He wasn't, but you don't get rid of that guy. In that situation, you stick to your guns because people aren't sticking to their guns on what they know is right for their own business.
Well, Dad,
and I don't understand that.
Do you know who and I love the point that you brought up there. He made people think. That's the thing Fox didn't like about him. They don't want you to think. They want you to sit there and listen to their talking points and then go vote GOP to save America. That is their marketing model.
Yeah, have you noticed basically all their shows are the same?
Oh, yeah.
Like all of them. They all hit the same points. If you go to Daily Wire and listen to each of their hosts, none of their shows are the same.
Oh, Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro were in a very public feud right now.
Yeah. And so it's like Fox News, if I turn on one show, it's going to be the same thing in the next one.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea. You know why?
You don't watch it?
I don't watch it anymore.
Whoa.
I don't.
You must be a happier man.
Well, actually, I am because, look, since the election,
Yeah.
Laura, I'll be honest. You get to the point when you see what we saw, you do get disgruntled. And it's not that I'm not engaged, don't love my country, and don't worry about him, because I do. But me watching it at night doesn't do any good because I don't know where our votes are going anyway.
That's fair. That's fair.
And
has Fox News recovered its viewership?
Nope, not even close.
No,
Wow.
not close. Now, that part I do know, just from hearing you talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, the thing is, and this is, I'm not trying to brag or say that I'm so in the know or whatever, but as somebody who is in the media, I know how to read ratings. I know how to look at the different demographics and see where they are. I don't know that Fox News will ever recover from this.
Probably not.
And part of it may just be that cable's going extinct, but part of it is that was kind of my point at the beginning of this. If you're on a ship that you already know is sinking, you don't start poking holes in the hull. That's just not a smart thing to do. Maybe Fox could have survived a little longer with Tucker, but without him, I just don't think they ever financially recover.
They're still better than MSNBC, though, because, son, you and I could do a singing and
Nope.
dancing show.
MSNBC
Can't do better than them.
Nope, Dad. MSNBC beat Fox in the last ratings demographic.
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
That hasn't been the case.
Show you how out of touch I am.
32 years, I think, Fox beat MSNBC in the ratings, and for the first time in 32 years, MSNBC beat Fox.
My goodness.
That's how bad it is.
You messed up when that
You know, that's
when you're
like,
losing to Rachel Maddow.
You know, that's like changing. You're going to have a new model instead of the F-150 truck. You've been number one, and I'm not a Ford person. You've been number one for 47 years, and you say, hey, let's change this thing and sabotage it. And hey, that's stupid. That is stupid.
Well, that's the thing. It would be like Coke coming out and say, you know what? We're just not going to make Coke anymore.
Yeah.
Now,
We
could
tried
they
that one time.
could they survive on Sprite and Fanta? I don't know, maybe. But the point is, why would you torpedo the #1 selling soft drink in America? It's just not smart.
I don't think they ever came out with a reason either for the Tucker Carlson firing, did they?
Did they? I never did
Officially, no.
officially
so.
see what it was.
I saw it was speculated by Tucker Carlson.
I think based on things I've read by Tucker Carlson and also people that used to work at Fox, that it was because he started talking about God a lot more than he used to. And
well, Ansley, what's her name on the morning show? She talks about God.
I don't know
of that.
But
the
yeah,
little
she
pretty,
wrote a whole book about it. Too.
yeah,
it makes
blonde head
Rupert,
lady. She's a pretty lady. She's good.
Well, I mean,
but-
they're all good looking on Fox.
yeah, I never noticed.
Now
Never
that
noticed.
Gretchen's not there anymore. But anyway, Rupert Murdoch is very uncomfortable with people talking about God, especially as it pertains to current events. And because of that, I think Tucker being the flagship and the face of the network, that just bothered him. I think that there were other things too. I don't think it was exclusively that, but based on some things that I heard about what was going on behind the scenes, I think that was the thing that was it more than anything else. Because he also broke up with his then fiance because she believed that Tucker was a prophet sent from God. I don't believe that, but
no, I don't. That's silly.
But my point is, like, that kind of stuff makes Rupert Murdoch extremely uncomfortable.
That's weird.
But anyway, all right, let's go ahead and move on to number 5.
Number 5.
Okay, and number 5 on the list is Jamal Bowman. I tried to say it too quickly. Pulling the fire alarm to stop the vote. Now, this is a stupid story, even if we didn't have more details that came out as the weeks went on. Have you guys actually seen the video of him pulling it?
Yeah.
I haven't.
So the best thing about it is, once we got the security video of that, you can actually see him removing the signs that say, "Don't open this door, fire alarm will sound."
Yeah, and he's over here later, he's like, well, I didn't know,
Didn't know?
the door. Yeah, and it's like, really? We saw you remove the signs.
You're in the Capitol building. Yeah. They've got cameras, dude.
We know.
Well, it's automatic in school.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Yeah, I mean, they actually will discipline you for.
Well,
because they will expel you.
Well, here's the thing that you may not know, Dad. In the District of Columbia, because of the fire codes in there, you can be arrested for knowingly pulling a fire alarm when there is no fire. That's actually
I don't doubt that.
That's a misdemeanor.
That does.
He did not.
Actually, I get that being against the law.
I agree.
Because that's a dangerous thing that can happen.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you do that, if you're an arsonist, you can set a fire somewhere else and take everybody. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You can simultaneously do that. It's a dangerous thing to do.
Well, and another thing on top of that, too, he was interrupting an official proceeding because that was an actual vote. I tend to remember people getting 22 years in prison for doing that on January 6th.
They did do
January
that.
6th, the Feast of the Insurrection.
Yeah, that was the poorest insurrection I've ever seen.
It was the first insurrection in history where everyone simultaneously forgot to bring weapons.
Yeah. If you're gonna at least bring a good stick,
right?
At least once.
They at least
had the bullhorns.
A spear. They did have the horns.
I guess you could hit somebody with a horn.
Buffalo horn.
Yeah. But anyway, no, one of my favorite memes that I saw after that was since you were talking about The Office earlier, Laura, it's the one where they have the two pictures and one of them's a door handle and the other one's a fire alarm and it's Pam underneath going, they're the same picture.
Yep.
Doesn't understand how those work. So here's the thing, and this is another reason why I think that this one is stupid. What they should have done is not have Jamal Bowen do it. They should have had AOC doing it because everyone would have believed she was too stupid to not know the difference between the door handle and the fire alarm.
At least there she's a woman.
And the thing about AOC is, I mean, what else could she do that would hurt her reputation?
Exactly.
With reasonable people.
Right, Jamal.
So, I mean, it wouldn't matter.
Bowman's actually in kind of a purplish district. Like,
oh, yeah.
AOC could literally be on video murdering children and they wouldn't vote her out.
No.
Yeah.
So,
when you study political science in college, they talk about different procedures that you can go through with them passing legislation and voting on stuff. They're now going to add that to the list of things you could do to stop a vote.
Yeah.
Pull the fire alarm.
I mean, yeah, that's a thing you can do apparently, and it worked, and there have been no repercussions, not kicked out of Congress, not even censured.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I think they did. I think they censured him.
well, I thought they voted on the censure, but it didn't pass. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I think it did. I can't remember.
Well, the Republicans have what, a 3-vote
I had a
majority
baby
now?
since then.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
A grown man though that did that.
Well, to be honest, the fact that none of us know shows you about how important a censure is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's basically
It
just
lost all its meaning.
it's basically just a congressional finger waggle. That's about the extent of the seriousness of it.
It was more serious until Donald Trump, honestly.
Well, maybe. Oh, I also remember the Democrats failing to censure Ilhan Omar about saying blatantly anti-Semitic things. So
Oh, yeah.
that was fun. Anyway, all right. Let's go ahead and move on to number 4.
Number 4.
All right, and number 4, the federal government just issued an end of the state of emergency over COVID-19 on January 31st, 2023. So a lot of people didn't realize this because, you know, it didn't affect most of our lives and most of our states had reopened since then. But the federal emergency did not end until this year, which is just absurd. There's no excuse for that.
You see, stupidest story, when I saw that one, I didn't know whether to put it first or last. Because I'm thinking, as far as impact, because of when it was, it really didn't impact anybody much, did it?
That's not really, no.
That's what I meant.
It made the economy worse.
Well,
timing-wise, because a lot of the federal help that came from the emergency order, it ended because of it, and so an economy that was already bad, it made it even worse.
That's
well,
true.
I didn't.
It also, the only people that it impacted in a very personal way, though, were federal employees, because I have some friends that work for the Fed, and they were still wearing masks until then in some situations.
Of course,
not
here
all.
in Montgomery, we still have that too.
What I think is funny is, obviously it's a little different now. I'll see panhandlers in like 80, 90 degree weather in the middle of summer with a mask on. I'm like, yeah, I'm not giving you anything. You're too dumb to like natural selection should show up at some point.
Buddy, your biggest problem is not the virus. You got a lot of issues that are worse than that.
You can't afford a sandwich, but you can't afford a face mask. All right, then.
Yeah, I saw some people walking around outside with face masks outside.
Oh, I saw a face mask today.
It's ridiculous.
I did, and that's to each his own. I don't care if they wear, a barrel over the head, but it doesn't bother me. But it's just
But it does show you how absurd the emergency orders were, and they were that way for the states too. Now they ended a lot earlier for the states, but I mean, Alabama was one of the last ones to rescind their orders. I don't know if you remember that, but Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, all of our surrounding states have lifted theirs almost a full year before Alabama did, because we have Kay Ivey. Yay! Yeah, see that. John had the appropriate reaction to Kay Ivey's name.
How do you feel, John? Tell us about it.
All right, on that note, let's go ahead and go to the next one.
Number 3.
All right, now number 3 is pretty bad. Gavin Newsom agreeing to debate Ron DeSantis on national TV. There are some fights you should just know that you're overmatched and should not engage in. And I would have had this one slightly higher if it had been anywhere other than Fox. I didn't have it as my number 1 because I knew, because it's on Fox, Gavin Newsom can throw his hands up and say, it was a Fox debate with Sean Hannity, it was biased. But even with that, I think that ended Gavin Newsom's career, at least on the national level. Like, he'll still probably get elected in California, but I don't think anybody could watch DeSantis just continuously take him down every single question and think that he has any viability on the national stage anymore.
You gotta have guts to lie when they've got the statistics right on the screen. Like, you gotta have guts. I mean, he did. That was impressive, honestly.
I mean,
all I saw was clips of it, but Gavin was overmatched. It would be like me in the prime taking on Chuck Norris in a fist fight. or somebody else you could name that.
Your prime or Chuck's prime?
It wouldn't matter.
Because
It wouldn't matter.
Because I'm 30, I'm 34 in a first degree black belt, and I still think Chuck Norris could whip me, even though he's old and fat now.
Yeah, but it's just and I don't know. I guess he's such an attention hog. Is that why Gavin did that?
I think
the attention.
So. Here's what I think.
We all know why he did it, though.
Here's what I think it was, and I think DeSantis actually talked about it in the debate, is that he wants to be the nominee.
Oh yeah, I think I think if Biden and Trump somehow drop out for whatever reason, realistically,
or die,
or die.
Neither one of them are spring chickens.
Yeah, then you are looking at a matchup between Newsom and DeSantis. And,
Who's smarter, Biden or Newsom?
I mean, back in
really
their
hard.
prime,
One guy at least has
now I think it's
medical excuse.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we're talking now, I think it's clearly Newsom. But if we're talking about 1980s Joe Biden, I think he'd give him a run for his money.
I don't know. Okay, I'll give him this. He doesn't fumble his words, but
right, he's an eloquent speaker. He just what he's saying doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Honestly,
yeah, but most of his people wouldn't pick up on that anyway.
Oh, I know. That's why I think that
true.
he's the better candidate.
They don't care about the numbers.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing that's so funny is, Dad, you were my debate coach back in the day, and so you know a lot about this just like I do. What is the easiest way to win any argument?
Say, I know you are, but what am I?
What?
You gotta say, I know you are, but what am I?
Laura did not have a classic debate.
No, but, well, obviously you have a pointed argument with facts behind it.
Sure.
That refutes what your opponent is saying.
Right. That's all it is. And it helps if you have the truth on your side as well.
Yeah, well, it has to be truthful facts. That's what a fact is.
Right. And I know that's what you were saying, but I was making it, a little more explicit.
It's a shame that, I see the rhetoric going back and forth between people now, and whether you liked them or not, but when Kennedy debated, because I've seen, and I was not able to see that at that time, but Kennedy and Nixon,
sure,
they debated facts.
Yeah,
they did. Nixon and McGovern. You go way back into the 70s and then get into the 80s between Mondale and Reagan. That was, everyone watch a good debate, a presidential debate. That's a good debate. You can get through, and they debated actual issues and facts and things like that, and had substantial, but that's no longer much of a thing from the other side at all.
Well, and that's the thing that I think is a real difference now than it was back then, is that at the time there's always been spin. They would always cherry pick statistics. That's always been a thing. And I understand that. But during the debate with Newsom and DeSantis, I couldn't find any of the sources for Gavin. And normally he didn't even give statistics or facts. He would just call DeSantis a racist or something. That's not a debate.
Yeah.
But,
or he would just directly contradict the facts that were just right there.
Right.
That's what killed me. It'd be well, more people, do you not see that? It's right there. Do you?
It's we've made life for Californians better. It's but there's more homeless people and they're all leaving your state. There's not.
Okay, top thing from that whole debate was DeSantis pulling out the crap map.
Oh, the poop map?
Yeah, the crap map. It was great. It was truly
that was pretty awful. I mean, there might be other ways to dispute certain points, but if you have a city that's covered in human feces, there's not a good counter debate for that. I really can't come up with a way to counter that one. See, John gets it.
John's I contributed to it.
Well, luckily he doesn't live in San Francisco.
That's true.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 2.
Number 2.
Okay, and number 2 on our list, and, for people who might accuse us of being biased, number 2 is actually a Republican. Donald Trump saying that the 6-week abortion ban in Florida was a terrible thing.
DeSantis is willing to sign a 5-week and 6-week ban.
Would you support that? You think that
I think what he did is a terrible thing and a terrible mistake.
Now, a lot of the ones that we've given on this top 10 list so far have been a know your audience moment. this is one where Donald Trump, for whatever reason, clearly does not understand his audience. And I think what's going on here is, A, Trump only understands destroy the enemy. And so because of that, when DeSantis does anything, he has to say it's bad regardless of whether he actually agrees with it or not. I think that's part of it. But I think another part of it could also be that when you come to an issue like this, based on the way that he's been talking about the abortion issue lately, I think some advisor has gotten into his head and been feeding him information that tells him that the reason that we got shellacked in the last midterm election is because of the abortion issue. Now, I don't think that that's true. And I also don't think it's politically feasible. And I'll tell you why here real quick. Most of Americans are not where the three of us are.
No.
All three of us are extremely pro-life, to the point of basically anything that isn't life of the mother, no exceptions, abortion is always made illegal.
I go farther. As a mom, if your life is in danger, you die.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, you do.
Right, and we can argue that point, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
I've known women like that.
We're very much, and I agree with you on the moral level. I think that there's a legal argument to be made in the other direction, but morally, I'm 100% with you. But my point in all of what I'm saying is we're way over here on this side of the spectrum, and then there are also people way over here on the other side of the spectrum that are like, we don't care if it's like a month old. If you want to kill it, you can kill it. I mean, the former governor of Virginia, for example, people like that.
Month old, that's big size my John.
But the fact is, like 60% of the population is somewhere between those two. And the truth is, none of those people vote on abortion. Like, if you look at the data, if you look at the demographics, they vote on a lot of things. Abortion is not one of them. And so the only people who will change who they're voting for based on abortion are people that are not in that middle of the ground kind of thing. So it makes no sense to pander on this issue, whether you're pro or anti-abortion.
Well, and Dobbs didn't happen yet. Dobbs hadn't happened. And
no, Dobbs had happened at that point.
Not 2020.
Oh, you're talking about the election. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about when Trump made this comment.
Yeah, so, I mean, no reasonable person would think they lost the election because of the abortion issue, because nobody voted in 2020 based off of the abortion issue.
No.
Not really.
No, I don't think so either. I was talking about, though, the midterm 2022.
Oh, yeah.
Where I think that the reason people didn't see the red wave they were expecting, I think that Trump has advisors that are telling him that's because people push so hard on the anti-abortion issue. But here's the thing that's ironic about that. If that's where his head is and where he's getting that advice, here's where the critical thinking comes in. The 6-week abortion ban that Trump was commenting on is a place where the red wave absolutely happened. I mean, Governor DeSantis won freaking Miami-Dade County.
Unheard of.
It is unheard of. That's the bluest area in the state. And so the fact that he was able to pull that off should be a pretty good indication that there are a lot of reasons that 2022 may have been kind of a wash for Republicans. Abortion was not one of those issues. So
you see, I think he can win.
I agree.
The primary or the general?
No, the general election. He's the only one that I think that's given an indication they want to run. He's the only one I think that can win.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
2 weeks ago, I would have disagreed with you, but given the new polling, I gotta say it's probably true.
Well, see, here's the reason I don't think Trump can win. And I know that this is not really the topic that we were discussing, but here's why I don't think Trump can win.
Oh, you're talking about DeSantis or Trump that could win?
No, I'm talking about in the general election. This is why I think Donald Trump cannot get elected president again. I think that there are enough blue states that after his prosecution will declare that he cannot be on the ballot, that he will lose because of that.
Yeah, because
I
think DeSantis can win.
I agree with that.
That's what
wholeheartedly.
I've
never
Trump.
questioned that. Trump, I have
questions. DeSantis, I think, is the only candidate.
And I'll tell you
that
why.
Can win.
That would be unusual for you, but I think he's the closest thing to Reagan that I've seen.
I agree.
And people look. Progressive people liked Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
And people in his own state like DeSantis.
Oh, even
they
the blue,
do.
Yeah,
even the blue people, they like him. There's enough of them. Now, some people hate everybody. But reasonable people.
Right.
Anyone
right
lot
of
them,
marks.
Yeah. Anybody reasonable, they did it, and Reagan won in a landslide. Because we had more reasonable people back then than we do now. I'll give you that. But I really do believe that he is the only one that has the chance of doing that.
I agree. I think honestly, I think if Trump would step aside, that's how we would win the election, is get DeSantis going.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
Well, and I hate to say it.
By the latest polls.
I hate to say it, but I don't think the polls are going to matter, because I think what's going to happen is Trump is going to get prosecuted, and the Republican Party will either have to back him from prison or let whoever came in second in the primary run. I think that's the only options they've got at this point. But that's just conjecture. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and move on to our honorable mentions.
Honorable mention.
Okay, so we've all selected one of the stories that were of the year that did not make the top 10 list that we wanted to share here. So we'll go ahead and let Laura go first if you'd like to. What was your honorable mention this year, Laura?
Okay, so for me, it was Secret Service claims there's no leads on who put cocaine in the White House. It was Hunter Biden. Here's a clue for you. It was Hunter Biden. Dude's the cokehead. I mean, this thing, it's planted in the Oval Office where only a few people have access.
Right.
Hunter Biden was there.
Well, now, as I understand it, it was a library, not the Oval Office, but the library was only accessible to like a very small select group of people, which included the first family.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's likely that Hunter Biden went in there, given that you'd have to be interested in books, and I'm not sure he is.
Well, I think that's where he's hiding his cocaine, in the books.
Books.
That's why it was there.
And now we know why the smell of books is so addicting. But, yeah. I'm sorry, guys. It was Hunter.
You bibliophile.
I hate you. Yeah. What in the world? You don't have any leads? Are you kidding me?
Well, there's no leads. There's no suspects. We can't think of who could possibly be putting cocaine in the White House. We have no idea who that could be.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Don't worry, guys. The Secret Service is on top of it.
Yeah. Great security we got.
All right, Dad, what was yours?
Biden shooting down party balloons after Chinese balloon scare.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that one?
I do. Like, at first, he let the actual Chinese spy balloon fly over the entire continental United States and didn't do a thing about it. And then he's shooting down birthday balloons from Publix afterward to make up for it.
Yeah, if you did that in a sitcom ahead of time, they would say, well, that's the silliest thing. But then it really would happen.
I think it was Mark Twain that said the difference in fiction and reality is that fiction actually has to make sense.
Yeah.
That's true. That's such a Biden kind of thing to do.
Very Babylon kind of article.
Yeah. I always wondered about this. This is just an angle on it.
Sure.
I swear I'd send some balloons over there to China. Just to see what would happen. I mean, I think that would be my move. Just to see what they would do.
Party balloons or
no?
Just spy stuff. I would have.
We should send 99 red balloons.
And you see, one of the
or no, wait, I got an even better idea. We send over after the Macy's Day Thanksgiving parade. We take those balloons. We send them over to China.
Snoopy flies over
China. Snoopy over Beijing. That's
on a sideline, not on the list, but one of the things that's one of my pet peeves.
Sure, go ahead.
Is China buying land here in the United States, especially agricultural land. Well, they buy it outside of military bases for one thing.
Well, yeah.
There's a reason for that. They want to have some control over agriculture. And I'm all for them buying, Laura. I am. And here's why. But I think that it should be contingent upon a law that we put into place that enables our people also to buy acre for acre in China.
I like it.
You like it?
Mm-hmm.
Think it'll happen?
No.
If it doesn't happen,
Too
then
reasonable.
but because the Chinese are not going to let the United States own a square inch in China. That's not going to happen in a socialistic country like that.
Of course not.
It's not going to happen. So what I would do with China then is say, look, if you won't do that, then we're taking back over every inch of ground that you've already bought. That would stop that. And I think our country would be better off as a result, don't you?
Oh,
I agree.
And say, look, if you want to say, and on the world stage, that would seem fair.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. All right. So my honorable mention is one that brings me endless levels of happiness, not because of the actual content, but just because watching the reaction, because nobody deserves to take it directly on the nose more than Disney. And watching Disney just crank out flop after flop after flop and then scratch their heads like, I don't know why people aren't watching our movies. I don't know. Maybe make it your primary job to entertain us instead of trying to push a political agenda, and people go and see your movies. People don't generally like to watch propaganda and don't want to pay money to watch it. And so whether you're talking about Strange World or the new woke girl boss, Miss Marvel, which no one liked, or what's this newest one that just came out, Wish, that was another massive box office. Dad, before 2 years ago, do you know when the last Disney animated feature box office bomb was?
I have no idea.
It was before I was born. It was The Black Cauldron in, I think, 1986.
I have never heard that.
It's actually a good movie, so I don't know why it bombed, but I like it. But regardless, that was the last time Disney animation actually had like a dud.
Well, in my children's lives, Disney had been the most successful in the history of that organization.
It is the most successful American corporation in that time span. There's no question.
Yeah, and it wasn't always like that at all. It was never meant to be this huge corporate conglomerate of this a powerhouse,
right?
Getting into all these other things and all these other genres of movies too, with all the action and all that stuff. They were animated and wildlife stories.
Yeah.
So it's changed dramatically since then. And yeah, in your life, starting in the early 90s, all the way up until, like you said, a couple of years ago, just an incredible amount of success.
Oh yeah, they could do that.
They were like the Patriots with Brady. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
But then
they're like the Patriots without Brady.
Yeah, they're
not good.
Not so sporty right now.
That's a working analogy. Good one, Laura. But yeah, just watching them going woke and just getting the absolute snot kicked out of them from a financial standpoint is something that I really appreciate. And I don't know if they're actually going to learn their lesson, because they seem all in to the point that they're willing to move forward with it, even if they're losing money.
They don't care. They are going to lose money.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so far they can go with that.
Right. Eventually they'll just go out of business.
But they still have a lot to burn. Do what?
Bob Iger is starting to see the light. He's starting to admit that was a mistake. So that whether he turns it around, I don't know.
They got a lot.
We did.
They've hired a lot of woke people down there.
Yeah, I think now that train has gotten so derailed that even Bob can't turn it around.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because here's the thing. The people that are running Disney may be ideologically on board, but you got to believe at least some of the stockholders are saying, no, I don't care. Like, even if they agree with them, they still don't want to invest their money in them if they're going to lose money. Like, it's just not a smart investment.
Yeah. Did you see the South Park episode making fun of all that?
Yes. And even though I'm not a South Park fan, that was comedic gold.
Was amazing.
Mom, can you see if there's a Disney executive under my bed?
Oh my gosh, Kitty's a black woman.
Well, either way, so that was it. Let's go ahead and go on to number one.
Number one.
And number one.
All right, and number one on the list, and I was honestly surprised this one made it as high as it did, but, it is a pretty dumb story, so I get it, and it's because all three of us included this one on our list. Asa Hutchinson claiming that trans surgery is a parental rights issue.
I believe that God created two genders and that there should not be any confusion on your gender. But if there is confusion, then parents ought to be the one that guides the children. That, to me, is an important fundamental principle.
You might be able to get away with that as a Democrat. You can't do it as a Republican, especially when the place where you say that is a place called the Family Leader, which is the Evangelical Conservative Convention. Like,
know your audience.
Yeah, I was about to say, how many of these stories have just been know your audience, understand who you're talking to? And Asa Hutchinson's up there is like, well, if parents want to lop off their kids' genitals, I don't see why the government should get involved with it. Look, I'm about as big a parental rights guy. Like, I've been a fierce advocate for parental rights my entire media career. But you don't get to just lop parts of your children off of their bodies and call that parental rights. That's child abuse.
Well, it needed the top story, as I reflect on it and think about it, really does need to be something related to transsexual.
Had to be.
And it needed to be something related to sex, because in our modern world today, that is the thing that matters the most and is in the news the most and is dominated so much of our world, at the workplace, at school, at church, everywhere else. We've decided now to have homosexual and all other kind of sexual preachers, ministers, workers in the church. All right. We've also had them involved in school, because we have to have the prom, and we have to make sure that we take care of all of that and make it open. And if you want to be a trans person, you can do that. Or if you want to be a doggone cat, you can be that. Any other kind of animal that you want to, it had to be something. The number one story had to relate to something sexual and transing into something stranger than the prior generation had been able to accept.
Yeah.
Well, along those lines, Dad, it wasn't even just that he said specifically that it's a parental rights issue. Did you actually see his interview with Tucker Carlson where he said this?
No.
The whole thing is a train wreck from beginning to end. In fact, they get into a back and forth about it. And Asa's response to this, which, by the way, this ended his campaign. Like, nobody heard anything out of Asa Hutchinson after this interview. His response to it was, well, Tucker, I was really hoping we could talk about some real issues. And that's really the problem and the disconnect right there. The older generation of Republicans are so far removed from the general public and where they are on this. They see these little social things as really a non-issue.
If you're a parent right now, this is one of the biggest things that should scare the crap out of you. So if you've called it a parental rights issue, the rest of us are saying, yeah, it's a parental rights issue. We don't want you convincing our kid to chop something off. Or we can't allow our kid to chop something off just because, they feel like they are this. I mean, we agree it's a parental rights issue. We just don't think we should be allowed to do that to our kid.
Well, and that's the thing too, Laura. And I think that it's so appropriate that you can talk about that. And Dad, of course, is a parent as well. I'm single, and even I understand the significance of this. I don't have any kids, but whether that's true or not, we're in a war against. We're in a war of truth versus falsehood. There's no other way to describe it. And so much of the old GOP guard is in this mindset of, well, we just need to talk about the quote unquote real issues, which for them is just things relating to money. Because it affects your life and it affects my life, how much they're taxing us. And that's an issue I feel very passionate about. It affects my life and it affects your life on how much government regulation they have on businesses, because it affects the things that we buy and it affects our businesses if we own one. But it's hard to get more personal than trying to brainwash your child into a cult that tells them that they should be mutilating their bodies. Like, I can't think of a thing that gets more personal and more real than that.
I mean, I agree. It's terrifying.
This thing, I'm speaking for you, but these kinds of things make you fearful for him.
100%. I mean, it's not going to affect me in the sense that they're not going to convince me to do that.
No, but
they are for my kid.
But that child will be influenced by people that have had that done, and will say that it's my choice and it's what I needed to do. And he may have a friend that he looks up to somewhere. I hope you keep him away from that, which you probably will. But the point is, that makes a mom fearful.
Oh, terrified.
And I get it.
That's why I'm finding these things in the library so much. I mean, it's because I know that books can influence children so much. I know these librarians will. I know that he's staying out of the public school system for that reason. I mean, yeah, these are the things that worry me so much right now as a mom. And I mean, is this something you had to worry about for your kids?
I never thought about it.
I mean, this is like the issue affecting most parents right now. And for Asa Hutchinson to be like, yeah, parents have a right to do that to their kids. Are you serious? I was a family law attorney before I became a mom, and I dealt with child abuse all the time. This is called actual child abuse. John is objecting because I did circumcise him.
He's still mad about that.
He's still pretty mad, but
Understandable.
honestly, he'll thank me later. So
Also true.
yeah. But other than circumcising your kid, I mean, it's
Well, that's an actual medical procedure that does have
here's the
benefits.
thing.
This is something that just, I mean, anything that a person could do, like even if you take the mutilation part out of it, which is a big deal, indoctrinating your child into this leads to a lifestyle that it ends in suicide 40% of the time.
Yes.
40%. And you think that should just be a parent's choice?
Issues.
Right. Like there is no way to justify that morally. You just can't do it.
No, and it again, to be redundant, but it makes parents fearful, and that's a bigger deal than being fearful about your pocketbook.
Oh yeah,
sure.
I would trade everything in this world for my child.
Right, and that's as much as you want the economy to be good and for us to live well and have a nice house and all the other things that American dream is supposed to have. But being fearful about your children trumps that. And so
absolutely.
And this story, and I didn't select it first to start with.
I didn't either.
But in reflecting back on it, it needed to be symbolically something sexual, and the abuse that we're allowing on our children now. And we have grown people that are producing it or enabling people to do this and fighting for them to be able to do this. And then we, as a part of all this too, girls' sports is going by the wayside in many instances. A girl can't be a girl anymore. And then you think about somebody that's a transsexual going into your locker room of your daughter, which is a fearful thing. And all of this is tied to that.
Well, it goes back to the discussion I was having about men being passive. This is a failure of Asa Hutchinson, and not just him, but the people that represent that wing of the Republican Party, to where they just want these social issues to go away so they can talk about the real issues. It's a passiveness of men, kind of what I started out with in my airing of grievances, because this is a person that doesn't care enough about women to protect, and they just want to be the nice guy. We've had enough nice guys. We don't need more nice guys. Mitt Romney was a nice guy. John McCain was a nice guy. They failed miserably over and over again. We need
Trump's
somebody
not a
that's
nice
a work.
guy, and he was successful to a
Right.
degree.
And for any of my misgivings about Trump, he was not a nice guy, and he
No.
actually said what he thought needed to be
He
said.
did.
And did it though. We'll give him that.
That too.
And I say that, it's going to take some courage for some people. And our country has to be kicked in the stomach a lot of times or beaten over the head to be able to react to something in the right way. And when we see 40% of stories come out, 40% of the young people committed suicide because of this, maybe then it will come home. I don't know.
I hope so. You look through Old Testament history, and Israel generally was the same way. They had to be kicked in the face over and over again before they're like, maybe we should actually just listen to God and do what he told us to do. And
they
then,
finally quit idols, didn't they?
Right.
They
now,
finally quit that.
It did take them 1,400 years, but they did decide, you know what, stuff did not work out well when we did the idol worshiping thing.
No,
that
it
just
didn't.
never ended well for us. But yeah, you're right. And unfortunately, I think America is going to have to learn that hard lesson, and we may be in Babylonian exile for a little while. I don't know, but we're going to have to learn that lesson, and it looks like we're bound and determined to learn it the hard way, unfortunately.
Yes.
All right, so real quickly, we're going to wrap up here with the Stupidest Person of the Year award. So this is on the person who wound up in the Daily Dose of Stupid the most often this year. So we'll just go through this one really quickly. Number 5, Asa Hutchinson. So no surprise there. Number 4, Jamal Bowen wound up in the number 4 slot. Number 3, Gavin Newsom. Number 2.
Try to see them higher.
I know, right? Number 2, and this is a surprising one because it's rare to have a Republican this high on it, but it is Donald Trump. And let's be honest, Donald Trump has not had a good year. There's been a lot of dumb things happening.
Still being in the race.
Yeah.
Dude needs a drop.
He did a lot of really good things as president, and he's done some good things this year too, but he's had a lot of dumb mistakes this year.
Time to go, dude. Time to go.
And then finally, for the 3rd year in a row, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, is the Stupidest Person of the Year.
Yeah.
He'd be the stupidest person in the kindergarten room.
Yep.
I do remember they did a video of him
No, that's a cut down to kindergarten.
speaking to a bunch of first graders,
Yeah,
and I was
the kindergartners.
there was video of him earlier this year visiting with like a bunch of first or second graders. I was like, you know what? He may still be the most unintelligent person in the room.
Kid's 5 years old.
But anyway, all right. So that's all we had for the Daily Dose of Stupid of the Year award. So thank you guys so much for being with us. Thank you, John, for being with us. And
Merry
well, I was
Christmas,
actually
Happy New
talking
Year.
to Baby John, but
Oh, you were? Okay, well, a little
But
confusing here.
yeah, I know we got double Johns here. But Dad and Laura, of course, thank you so much for contributing to this. It's been a great year, and I appreciate y'all taking some time out of y'all's busy schedule to help me do this.
Great to be with you.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
All right, so that's going to be it for us. Thank you so much, and happy Festivus. We are going to go to one last Chaplain's report, and then we'll be done for the years.
In 1775, the Continental Congress created the Chaplain Corps. Under the command of General George Washington, each soldier was required to attend worship service every Sunday. While other armies advanced on their feet, Washington's troops advanced on their knees. It's time for the Chaplain's Report with Caleb Colquitt on tactics.
And welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for being with us here on Tactics. We got the Chaplain's Report coming up, and I wanted to address something that has been in the Bible for a long time, and I do have a pretty good understanding about it now, but it took me a while to get to this point, and it was something that I always thought was kind of bizarre, because I think culturally it doesn't really fit with our current culture, and so I'm going to try to do a little bit to bring this concept into the modern era. So the issue that I'm talking about, and it does relate to Christmas and the holiday season, and I'm going to get to that in a second, but the thing that always bothered me is it seemed bizarre to me that God had to order people to take a day off. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, this is one of the commandments. So if you remember, if you go back into the old law, God actually commanded the children of Israel to have a Sabbath. And that's actually where the word for that day, the seventh day of the week, Saturday, it originally derives from that Shabbat, which would be the Hebrew pronunciation of it, or the Sabbath. And the way that it worked is that God commanded the children of Israel, it's one of the 10 commandments, that they had to honor the Sabbath day and keep it holy. The book of Exodus and then the book of Leviticus goes into more detail on exactly what that looks like. And essentially what it boiled down to is you were not allowed to work on the seventh day. You worked on the other 6 days, and then you reserved the seventh day for a time of rest, a time for rest not only for you, but for your livestock, for any slaves or servants that you had, for any working animals that you had. Everybody got a day of rest, whether they were a child of Israel or not. Even the people working in the land took that day off. And so God mandated a day off for everybody. And if you think about it, it's not that far removed from this society, but the reason I always thought it was bizarre is because I always liked days off, and I actually really wanted to take days off. And it seems like the culture around us wants to have a lot of days off. I mean, for Pete's sake, we're talking about people now that are advocating for a legal mandate that companies are only allowed to work you 4 days a week, like 32 or 36 hours. Yeah, I think it's 32 hours is one of the ones that they're arguing about. And so it may seem a little weird to us in our modern society, the idea that God had to mandate an actual day off on the seventh day, that after you've worked for 6 days, you have to rest. Now, I do want to point out, I'm going to be focusing on the rest aspect of it, but it is important to keep in mind that this Sabbath day that was commanded always happened after the sixth day. And so God expected mankind to work for 6 days and then take the seventh day off. God wasn't a person that expected people to just, put in 20, 30 hours a week and then be done with it. Now, if that's all your job demands of you and it's able to afford you a nice living, I mean, I guess that's all right if that's a decision that you want to make. Now, I would want to fill up the rest of that time doing something useful or productive, even if it's just volunteer work that I'm not getting paid for. I mean, you can be doing something good and righteous and productive without getting a paycheck for it. But my point in all of that is there is an expectation from God that we are going to spend 6 days out of the week working, and the seventh day will be rest. Now, I tend to work a 5-day work week, and that's fine. But my point is, we're supposed to utilize our time wisely, and then that seventh day was supposed to be reserved for everybody to sort of take a step back, to reset, and to meditate and focus on God and His law, and also their relationship with their families as well. Because you have to keep in mind that this commandment came down at a time where starvation was an ever-present threat. And that's something that a lot of modern people don't really understand. Like, even the people that are quote unquote poor among us are still some of the wealthiest people in all of human history. They still have an abundance of food, much more than people in past generations, especially poor people of past generations, would have had access to. They still have access to a lot of amenities. There's the social safety net and a number of other things. And I'm not saying that they have no struggles or that their life is easy. I don't think that money determines the ease or virtue of a person's life to begin with. But what I am saying is, even our poor people have a hard time going hungry. And so the idea that somebody would not be able to survive because they didn't work those 6 days is something that's a little bit foreign to us, honestly, in the modern society. But to them, this was an ever-present threat. And so because of that, you had a legitimate reason for being a little bit anxious about where your food was coming from and wanting to go out and work all 7 days. You'll notice that one of the things Jesus does in his famous Sermon on the Mount is he talks a lot about this. He says, look at the lilies of the field. They neither labor nor toil, and yet even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed in garments as majestic as these. Therefore, maybe you shouldn't worry so much about what you're going to wear. And then talks about the birds and how God feeds them. And he says, essentially what it all boils down to is that if God is going to provide for you, then you don't have to worry about constantly working and trying to keep yourself alive for the entirety of your life. You can take time to take a step back. And so that really brings me to what the Sabbath was always really intended to do. There are several lessons we could learn from the Sabbath, but I think that the big ones are, first of all, your priorities. You see, especially men, I think that women have this too, but they tend to be a lot better about work and personal life balance than men are, just generally speaking. Men especially struggle with this idea of, oh, well, I'm working for my family, I'm providing for my family. Yes, that is a good and virtuous thing, and most men have a desire to be that provider and protector, and that's a good thing. That's a instinct that God put into you, and it's good that you're using it for exactly that purpose. However, this is important. He does also want you to not just provide for the physical needs of your family, but be a leader for your family. And to do that, you kind of have to be there. And that's one of the things that the Sabbath was supposed to teach the men of Israel, that ultimately they had a responsibility to their family, not just to make sure that they had full bellies and a roof over their head. That's important too, don't get me wrong. But they also had a responsibility to teach their children, a la Deuteronomy 6, about God. That was their primary purpose, even more important than providing and protecting. They were supposed to teach their children about God, and they were supposed to have a relationship with their children. That's a blessing that God gave them, and a relationship with their wife as well. Likewise, wives are supposed to have that level of relationship with their children and their husband, and that's why the Sabbath was for them too. They weren't allowed to prepare elaborate meals or anything. You were actually supposed to cook all the food that you were going to eat over the Sabbath beforehand. And so the women got a day off too. It wasn't just the men. It wasn't just the day laborers. And so the entire community had a day where they all sat back and reset and were able to fellowship with their family, with their neighbors. They were able to take some time to focus on God. And so really, I think one of the main lessons we can take out of the Sabbath is priority. You actually take time to recognize and to cultivate the relationships, which are really the purpose of you working in the first place. I mean, what good is working to provide for a family that you don't really know, or that you don't really have a strong relationship with? You don't just want to be living in a house with a bunch of strangers. Another thing that it does, and I think that this is really important, is it's a reliance on God. Because like the children of Israel, when this was originally instituted back when they were out in the wilderness and God was providing for them through manna and through water, you have to keep in mind, these people weren't even like farming at this time. And so they were completely reliant upon God for everything that they had. And they just had to have faith that the manna was going to resume on Sunday, when they gathered the double portion on Friday and gathered enough manna to be able to eat it on the Sabbath until, and that was going to be enough to get them through. But it didn't just go to that. That's something that continued when they did become farmers. I mean, famines were common in this time. You could have all of your cattle get sick and just die. This was a thing that happened, and it was not all that uncommon. And yet you had to have enough faith in God that when he said, hey, take a break on the seventh day, take that time to be with your family and meditate upon me and the commands that I've given to you, you had to have faith that God was going to provide for you for that time. And it didn't just go to the Sabbaths of the every day of the week. You also had the feast where you weren't permitted to work. You also had the Sabbath years where every seventh year you just didn't work. And so it doesn't mean that you didn't do anything, but you didn't plow the fields, for example. You actually let the field rest and that kind of thing. And so you had to have a lot of faith as an ancient person to do some of the things that God commanded. And then, of course, there's the 50-year Jubilee and all the other Sabbaths that take place. There's the new moon Sabbath. And so there's all these different days that occur. And the children of Israel had to have complete faith in God's providential hand that he was going to be their protector and provider, that they would not work on the seventh day. And so it establishes a faith in God that as long as you're doing the thing that God asked you to do, that he was also going to be there to protect you and to provide you the things that you weren't providing for yourself on that day. And then there was a third lesson, and I think that this one's really big too. It was gratitude. Because if you work really hard for 6 days and you were able to see the fruits of your labor, you're able to partake of those, you're able to eat of them, it's really easy to think that you're the one doing the providing. And to an extent you are, and that's not a bad thing. But ultimately, you're supposed to remember that God is the one that's really providing stuff. Because is God providing the natural order that allows seeds to germinate and livestock to reproduce? Yes, he's doing all of those things. And you didn't matter how good a farmer you were, if God's not causing those things to take place, you're not going to be able to benefit off of that. And in the same way, God's the one that's sending the rain. God is the one that is sending the sunshine. God is doing all of these things to allow you to be able to go out and make gain. God also made you and put the breath in your lungs. That's one of the things that the Torah teaches right off at the origin of man. And so it's important for us to think about these things, because when you had to take a day off and not work, and the things that you were provided with, that you made provision for, were provided to you by God, and you had to take time and think about that, then you become a much more grateful person. And I really think that gratitude is the key to happiness, because then instead of thinking about how entitled you are and how there's a lot of things out there that you don't have that you think you deserve, instead you become very grateful for the things that you've been given, and that makes you a much happier person, because you see yourself as a blessed person instead of a oppressed or set upon person by somebody else. It really changes the way that you view life. And so these are all extremely important things that the Sabbath taught us. Unfortunately, there were some people in the days of Jesus, and I'm sure that they were not the first. Other people, and in fact, we know from the Old Testament history, they are not the first people to misunderstand or misuse the Sabbath. But Jesus is on the Sabbath passing through a grain field, and the Pharisees have this conversation with him. We're going to go to the Gospel of Mark, chapter 2, verses 23 through 28. And it happened that he was talking about Jesus there. And it happened that he was passing through the grain fields on the Sabbath, and his disciples began to make their way along, picking the heads of grain. The Pharisees were saying to him, "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" And he said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he was indeed hungry, and his companions became hungry? How he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar, the high priest, and ate the consecrated bread, which is not lawful for anyone to eat except the priest. And he also gave it to those who were with him. Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Go, the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." One of the things that I think is extremely important about that story is, first of all, Jesus is not saying that what he was doing was breaking the Sabbath. A lot of people misread that story and think that that's what he's doing. He's saying, oh yeah, well, I was breaking the Sabbath, but ultimately it's okay because I'm Lord of the Sabbath and I can do what I want. That's not actually what Jesus was saying. Now, did he have the authority to do that? Sure. But what he's actually saying is, do you people think I would break my own rules? Don't you understand that I'm the one that instituted this thing? And when he talks about it there, he's saying, ultimately, you don't understand the purpose of the Sabbath. You see, you guys would never say a cross word about David, who clearly violated God's law. But when David did that, he was doing so to keep his army going because his life was being pursued by King Saul. And so it's ultimately important to remember that God is doing things for our benefit. That's what he means when he says that the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. See, it would be very, very bizarre if you got a Christmas gift this year for your 1-year-old baby, and it turns out that it's a little baby onesie and it's a little too small. So what you do is you try to put your baby on a diet and a exercise regimen so he can fit into that onesie. You would never do that. That would be stupid. Why would it be stupid? Because the shirt was made for the baby, not the baby for the shirt. You're reversing the order of importance here. And so that's what he was trying to explain to them. You guys keep using the Sabbath as a cudgel to bash people with. And the Pharisees were doing this over and over again. We see it multiple times in the Gospels. You see, they made a whole bunch of extra laws that God never instituted. And they referred to that as the tradition, which was, the other side of the law of Moses. But it was the traditions of men. It wasn't something that God ever said. They had it to where you had to count a certain number of steps so that you made sure that you weren't doing too much work on the Sabbath and that you had to do this or had to do that. And they made a bunch of extra rules for the Sabbath, and they made it the most stressful day of the week, which is ironic because the whole point was that God was giving that to mankind as a kindness. It's not that God wanted to pass down these edicts through some arbitrary notion that he had that this was going to be what he wanted to do. He did it as a gift to mankind. It was God giving people that, and it reminds me of something Dennis Prager, who's an Orthodox Jew and still practices the Sabbath, it reminds me of something he said. He said, my punishment for disobeying God's commandment about the Sabbath is that I don't get a Sabbath. And he's exactly right. And that's how a lot of God's commands work. Our punishment for not doing what God asked is that we don't get the benefit that came with doing what God asked. That happens a lot. And that's exactly what happens with the Sabbath. This wasn't something that God put over people so that it could be a cloud over their head every week and that they'd have to walk on eggshells so that they made sure that they didn't do any work. He did that as a way to say, hey, take this day, unwind, spend it with your family, enjoy the things that I've provided for you. I'm going to be the one to provide those things. And in return, I also want you to think about your relationship with me and reflect on that for a little bit. See, the Sabbath was always intended as a gift. And as Christians, we're no longer called to adhere to the letter of the law when it comes to the law of Moses. We don't have to follow that anymore. The Sabbaths have been done away with. And I understand all of that. I get that. But the reason that I'm bringing this lesson up right now is because really that's what Christmas should be. Some people choose to celebrate Christmas as the birth of Christ, and I certainly don't think, via Romans 14 that there's anything wrong with that. Some Christians choose not to. I think that that's perfectly fine too. As that verse says, each esteems a day, whether he esteems one day higher than the other or not, let him do so to the Lord. So either option, just go with your conscience, and whatever, you come to that conclusion is better for you spiritually, then do that. That is an occasion where Paul explicitly gives some wiggle room and some freedom in Romans 14. But whether you do that or not, you do need to take this opportunity as a time to be with your family, to reflect, to pray and be grateful, and to take in all the lessons of the Sabbath. Think of this holiday season as a Sabbath. And I know that some people have to work over Christmas, and I know that that sucks for y'all. And by the way, to our first responders and the people that are keeping the lights on and keeping us all safe on Christmas that have to work on Christmas because of that, the soldiers that are overseas, people that are doing public service, on the holidays. God bless you, and I appreciate your service. I really do, because that allows all of us to have a Sabbath, because you guys are out there making sure that we're safe. And so, you know, whether you're working utilities or, like I said, a police officer or a fireman or paramedics or people working in the hospitals, I know nurses that have to work through the holidays, whatever you're doing in that capacity, we certainly appreciate that. And I would like to extend a personal thank you for that. But for everybody that actually does get this time off, this is a really great time to take a step back, to be with your entire family, because so many people are off work, and to be able to fellowship with them and reconnect with them, and more importantly, with God. Strengthen your relationship with one another so that it can help aid in strengthening your relationship to God. That's what the Sabbath was always intended to do. And so treat this festival that we celebrate as a Sabbath. And I think that there's a lot of good that we can learn from that. When you're thinking about the presents that you've been given, or the Christmas dinner that you're about to enjoy, or just being around your family, be thankful for that, because there's a lot of people that don't have that. And I just wanted everybody to really think about that, and to take this opportunity. Maybe we should take some lessons from the Sabbath and apply some of those lessons and those teachings and some of the wisdom that God gave the Israelites, and apply them to times where we get a chance to take a breather and take a break from our busy lives, and really just get to enjoy that time with our family and our God. You know, I remember Gad Saad said that there are 4 ingredients for happiness. Work is one of them, and so that's kind of the opposite of what we're talking about now, but he does say, you know, a Sabbath is only a rest. You only get to rest if you worked. If you didn't work, you're not really resting. And then the other 3, he said, were friends, family, and God. And if you do all 4 of those things on a regular basis, you will be happy pretty much no matter what. And he's probably right. So, you know, as we're going through this holiday season, however you celebrate the season, think of it as a Sabbath, and just take that time to really enjoy it, reconnect with God, read some Bible together, do a devotional together, find ways to really connect with one another, and do so with the explicit purpose of trying to better not only your relationship with God, but those of everybody around you as well. Enjoy this season. Merry Christmas. Happy Festivus for the rest of us, of course. And until next time, stay the course, friends.
Thank you for listening to the Tactics Podcast. Tactics is a production of Not Ashamed Media. Any opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of our business partners or sponsors. Graphics by Jessica Dawson. Video production by Jackson Dean. Broadcast studio provided by Faulkner University. Location studio provided by Del Reyta Church of Christ. Copyright 2021.